What is up, best friends? This is your best friend, Sam Pura, and today we're going to take a look at my studio, the Panda Studios. So let's step inside. Okay, we are in the entryway of the Panda Studios. I have a few art pieces in here worth talking about. Number one, the gorgeous Panda painting here. It is just a beautiful painting, nice, colors, nice aesthetic, little surrealist and a little avant-garde, letting people know what they're walking into. Creative production space, branded with a beautiful panda. Then here is my Nail the Mix certificate when I did my Nail the Mix session for the Story So Far song. Then we turn to my favorite poster in the building. This is the Radiohead Kid A bear. It's not a panda, but hey, we'll let it go because Kid A is one of my favorite albums of all time. So, you have to grace every new client with its presence and importance by just having it in there in the peripheral vision. So, they may not notice it, they may not appreciate it, but it's somehow influencing the music we're about to make when they walk into this facility. Best record ever, Kid A. And lastly, we got this very cute panda here with a heart, letting everyone know that we truly love and care about you, and we're here to be best friends. And then also, no smoking on the premises. So make sure that you smoke your cigarettes and your vapes and things like that on the street, because there is no smoking of any kind allowed at the Panda Studios. Next, we'll go into our first room here, which is the bedroom. I used to refer to this room as the waiting room, and then I named my live production recording series on YouTube. I named it the waiting room after this room, so it would be confusing what this is if it's, associated with that. So we'll just let this go. We just call this the bedroom now. So I started my recording studio a long time ago and eventually had it in one of my old live-work recording studios in Oakland, where I had bands crash. And that would allow them to stay at my studio for weeks at a time for us to just focus on making a record. So when I moved into this facility 13 years ago now, I decided that I wanted to bring that vibe into my space and have a place for my bands to crash as well too, whenever we were making records. So I made this room for them, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1 tucked under there, 9 beds for everyone to sleep in. And they're all kind of modeled like a tour bus bunk. I went on tour and loved my bunk as a young lad. So the only thing you really needed in your bunk is a light and a power source. So each bed has its light and a power source. And then everyone has their own specific towel, a pillow, and a comforter. And every bed is decked out for everyone to just hang out and live here for days, weeks, months, making a record here at the Panda Studios. Now we got a couple of art pieces in here worth talking about. Number one, you might notice that the room is purple, and that's because we love our boy Prince. Purple Rain, one of my favorite artists, big influence. This is an art piece by a friend of mine, Robbie's fiance, Carissa. She did this. It's phenomenal. It's a bunch of mixed media. Once I saw it, I knew we needed it in this room, so we got it hanging out in here to let everyone know that Prince is the god, and he's one that we all need to reference and respect, because there's a lot to learn from listening to Prince music. So yeah, we got Prince here. We got a little cute little panda. Pandas wherever we possibly can. Then one of my favorite pieces here. This is an old Salvador Dali painting that I got at IKEA when I used to work there as a kid. It's actually a pretty cool piece. It takes a while to really see it, but if you step back, you'll notice that this piece here, this breast actually makes up a nose, and this actually makes up an eye, and then this is a mouth, and then you see a little neck tie, and you then see that there's some hair, and this is a person, so it's like a double image inside of like another image. It's just like a trip. Like, I just love Salvador Dali. He's a big influence. I just love his attention to detail and his depth and his color, all things that really actually influence my audio work and my artistic aesthetic. Are things like looking at a Dali painting. That's how I want my music to sound. Very detailed, very crisp, lots of double meanings, lots of depth. Salvador Dali rocks, so that's there. Then I got a nice print from my buddy Chris Newell. He's a really good friend of mine that grew up going to high school with, and he's a great artist. So this is one of his elephants that he did. I think this is a stamp, actually. It's like a stamp that he like made and dipped in ink and pressed. It looks super cool. Then an old CD. I don't know how many of you remember CDs, but here's the first EP I did for a band called The Story So Far. And then the first album I did for a band called Heavy Heavy Lolo. These two CDs were kind of like launching points for my career that kind of made my studio what it is today. So it's also, we got a desk in here so that if you want to set up and just hang out and do any audio work or computer work, you got a quiet space to be around and do your own thing over here too. People bring TVs and video game stations and whatever. We even set up and do side recording in here too. Why not, you know? That is the bedroom. This is where you would crash if you came and recorded at the studio for a few weeks. Let's continue on into the hallway here. This is the glorious Walk of Fame that is littered with all of our records that we have produced here throughout the years. LPs are on the right side here. EPs and smaller releases are here on the left side. We still have some space to make up for some other spots here, so we'll keep going from there. Lots of notable cool stuff in here on this wall. Heavy Heavy Lolo, Bone Cutter, then Spice, Sabertooth Zombie. This is a California legend in the punk scene in my world. Human Performance 1, 2, 3, and No Sir. Also, we have the classic Story So Far split that they did with Stick to Your Guns. This has the song Clairvoyant on it, which was like probably the first like song I ever did that hit 1 million plays on Spotify. How crazy that was when that happened. But yeah, some other cool releases, you know, Basement album or EP that I mixed, Band Stick Up Kid, an EP that I did for them, super cool. American Scene, Forever Came Calling, The Limousines, shout out to The Limousines. Then we have a really cool, you know, surrealist, energetic photo of a panda there, you know, it kind of highlights the spirituality and creativity we try to exude through our productions here. We can talk about this wall for a second. We got a few cool records on here. This is actually a pretty fun guy. This is The Pillow Guy. This is a song that he did, and he's a really talented artist. He actually like makes really phenomenal art pieces for a lot of corporations and, you know, one-time gigs, but super cool guy, Pillow Guy, fun project. My Iron Lungs Relief. This is a pretty good album that I produced. Sounded great. Shout out to Devin Bentley, phenomenal drummer. Then this is the Tennis System album that I mixed and did some additional production on. This is produced by my good friend Chad, who's in the band 100th. This is probably my favorite album I've ever worked on. This is their album Somewhere Nowhere. Shout out to some friends Call the Wolf. This is more 100th records right here. These are all 300th records that I've done. Band Dorm Patrol from Sweden, super cool. Season Change, it's been a while since I thought about them. They were a band on No Sleep. Yeah, pretty cool. We can move on over to here. This is one of the coolest album artwork pieces I've ever seen. This is from the Sabertooth Zombie album, Dead Fathers, which is this album right here. But if you split it open, it looks like this, and it's got Walt Disney and the Pope and Sarah Palin, and then this is like some priest or like some bishop in their area that was like, you know, in a bunch of trouble for like sexually abusing kids and stuff. So it's just like axis of evil, lots of money, and you know, the old Illuminati. It's pretty fucking tight and cool art piece. I like it a lot. Then we got a bunch of really cool records over here. We got the Spice albums that we worked on. More Sabertooth Zombie. This is the Heavy Heavy Lolo album, Turtle Nipple. This is one of my favorite albums that I've ever produced. Did it a long time ago at a place in Oakland. Lots of weed, lots of fun, lots of avant-garde noise time. This is re-release of the Fuck It album that I did for Heavy Low. Probably the thing that like put me on the map. First record that I ever did anything cool. This is the Downstairs EP, which is like some of the dudes from Heavy Low's album. Good band. That's our homie Joshy on the cover there, who unfortunately passed away. So it's a nice memory to see him up on there. North, amazing band that I worked with from Arizona, like, Jesus, 15 years ago. Really phenomenal band. This album, actually, all the way at the top, kind of a funny one. It's actually the first and only album to come out on my record label that I had put out with my friend Jihad from 12 Gauge Records, and this is put it out on our own record label called Family Drugs. But yeah, that's a end of year self-defense family album, or EP. Very cool. Then we're on to the Stories So Far wall here of all the Stories So Far records I've done and the few variants of them. So yeah, lots of history there, including Kevin's solo record there with Same Side. So that is that. Then we got American Scene, State Champs, Elder Brother, Dangerous Summer, Forever Kim Collins, Contender. Wow, I gotta fix that little sleeve that's coming out of there. I wonder how that happened. I'll get up there on a ladder and fix that. Then we got the Blowout record up there. That frame and that glass broke at one point, so it seemed pretty fitting to put the Blowout record in a record with, or a frame with a blown out, glass on the front. Then you'll see an empty space here, anxiously awaiting Death Western, the album that I produced for a band called Spirit World. This is the first album I did. Their new album, Death Western, is out. Phenomenal album, one of the best albums I've ever produced in my life. Can't wait to get that on the wall. Then we got the 2 Basement albums I did, Color Me a Kindness, Promise Everything. Very great records. Lots of traction through those ones. A band called Alaska, cool band. Worked with them for 2 albums, made some pretty cool shit. And there it is. A band called Gay Paris, To the Wind, Miss Her, and Crucified. That's kind of wraps up the albums on the wall here. Then we go to this side. This is my certificate of graduating in my Bachelor of Applied Science and Sound Arts. I am an actual audio graduate, so I know what I'm doing because I went to college, people, okay? And then, yeah, we got the Story So Far plaque here. A lot of people are always like really impressed by this, but a fun fact that my neighbor made is that we're in the city of Fremont, California, and there's 250,000 people of the population. So this number means that not even half of the people of Fremont, California purchased this album. If you're going deeper, this number means that 0.001% of the population has purchased this album. So, a lot of people are impressed by this, but I see it as just, the starting point. We're shooting bigger. We want to reach global scale. We want to be best friends with every human in the world and make their favorite songs of all time. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that kind of wraps up the hallway. I have these really nice panels up here blocking off any of the open space. It just ties the space together. Looks real nice. I also like to stick mics out here because it's a really cool ambient room. So that is why I have a pair of large diaphragm condenser microphones just sitting out here all the time. And that brings us into talking about our live room, which is our first live room of our 2 live rooms here at the studio. And this is the West live room. And so what I do is I tend to record drums in this room, and I tend to leave this door open for this room so that all the sound goes into this hallway. And that's why I have those hallway mics there and get this extra layer of decay and depth and reflection that's not happening inside of this room to be able to blend into the drum sound. So yeah, this is the live room. This is about a 25 by 30 room. One unique feature, one thing to mention, I guess, you can take another look at it by looking at the hallway here, but the hallway actually is not a straight wall, and that was done specifically because I wanted to create an angle and create a parallel wall for this room so that this live room is not a parallel surface room. So technically this wall is slanted and it is a parallel surface to this wall. This is the only parallel surface right here. And on the top of here, this is actually a slanted ceiling for a rain gutter there. So actually the whole floor is not parallel with the ceiling. So it really helps with the diffusion in this room. It's not very like boxy sounding, and it just sounds live and quick, and the decay just sounds bright and energetic, but it doesn't sound echoey and it doesn't sound fluttery. It's worth noting that this room was the design that you see all here, and all the treatment was designed by a guy named Jeff Hedbeck. I hired him, and I got all the plans and built everything as best as I could, but I did it very DIY. So he kind of has a pretty cool style in terms of that he likes to have a lot of absorption with diffusion on top of that, and that allows for things to be more reflective but controlled. So we're not really killing the ambience and the natural decay of the room, but we're actually just controlling all the frequencies of it. So his designs tend to have a lot of absorption and then one live wall. So there's one wall that is traditionally untreated in most of his designs. So this is our live wall here, and this allows all the sound to just hit this naturally and bounce off and be diffused and reflected, and it just makes everything sound really awesome. I mean, obviously the first thing to talk about is the Drumbrella. The Drumbrella is a straight ripoff of Eric Valentine's Drumbrella, which he claimed was a straight ripoff of the Ocean Way Drumbrella, which Ocean Way, RIP, you apparently are not a studio anymore, and that is upsetting. Also, Eric Valentine's Drumbrella isn't a thing anymore, so two less Drumbrellas in the room, but I am carrying on the tradition of the Drumbrella by having a Drumbrella in my room. Lots to talk about with this. Very funny story in terms of how when we built it, it was actually built outside in our garage, and then I had a realization that I think it wasn't going to fit into the door, and it didn't fit in the door, so we had to take it apart and get it together. But anyways, the Drumbrella is in this room. This room's ceiling is about 14 feet tall. Starts 14 on that end, ends at 12 here, so it's about 13 in the middle. So yeah, this is hoisted up above, and a lot of people think that this sound would be more dramatic with the raising and the lowering of it, but really the best way to explain it is that if I'm playing a snare drum and it sounds and it responds great, and I tune it up a little bit more, my bottom end and my response with the room is going to change. And if I change and alter the height of the Drumbrella, I will be able to retain that low end that I had before tuning it up by actively changing the tuning of the room to accommodate with the tuning of the drums. So the way that I kind of tend to work on it is I'll set it at a drum set, I'll hit around some toms and some kick and snares and get it to a point where I'm playing with the level, and they'll just eventually sit and balance out, and sounds like the decay is really natural. So I'll play with that and kind of try to demonstrate that in a minute. But yeah, so a couple facts about the treatment. This is all 703 panels inside of the walls here. All the walls are, you know, double thick walls, like totally soundproof. This is, the whole unit is in a industrial space where I'm just allowed to be as loud as I want, however long I want. This is all 703, except for these two big bass traps in the back. Those are just filled with Ultra Touch, which is recycled blue jeans. So it's just a bunch of recycled blue jeans just sitting inside of those panels there. Let's talk about some drums. Let's just go around the room here. These are kick drums from my PDP Concept Maple kit. I am a firm believer in tuning drums to the keys of songs, and so I bought every iteration of this drum set so that I could have every possible size to accommodate for any tuning that I want. So this is an 18-inch kick drum, this is a 22-inch kick drum, this is a 24-inch kick drum, and this is a 26-inch kick drum. I'm a very big fan of the PDP drum sets. If for those who don't know, PDP is essentially the parent, or I'm sorry, the daughter or child of DW drums. So it's essentially DW drums, just made in a cheaper way and manufactured much cheaper. All the components are great. All the shells sound great. I love them, and pretty much anytime a drummer comes to my studio, my drum kit usually sounds better than theirs. So most people don't even really bring their drums anymore. So yeah, then it moves on to toms, which I guess we can finish off talking about this. So currently I got a 13 up there, and I got a 16 on the floor tom, but I also have an additional 12-inch, a 14-inch, and an 18. So again, if we go through all the drum sizes, we got 18, 22, 24, 26 kick. Then we've got 12, 13, 14, 16, 18 toms. So yeah, any tuning, any song, any style, these drums are pretty much my go-to. These are the sounds that I really like to use. This is the typical drum placement that we do. We set it up right here underneath the drum umbrella. I have a huge assortment of cymbals and heads, etc. I guess it's important to finish off over here. So I have, usually I always have another pair of hi-hats set up because I like to switch hi-hats between songs, sometimes even parts of songs. So I always have a second pair ready to go. I'll make a drummer choose his two favorite hi-hats. So we have a reserve hi-hat over here, and then our main hi-hat that we're ended up using. Then I got all the old drum heads that we've changed through. All these drum heads are like phenomenal, like they haven't really been used that often. So if anyone wants to change into like a clear head instead of a coated head, or someone breaks a head, then we can quickly swap between that. We got a bunch of drum heads ready to go. Then we got our cymbals, big cymbal collection here. So I have all of my low volume Zildjians. That way anyone who's practicing or jamming and doesn't want to like play on all the expensive cymbals, they can just, jam on these guys and learn their parts or whatever, Then I have all my hi-hats over here. I have so many pairs of hi-hats. I fucking love hi-hats. Really, really, really particular about hi-hat sounds. For parts, like I said earlier, I even change hi-hats in the middle of songs, depending on I really like the open sound of this hi-hat, but I really like the closed sound of this one, et cetera, et cetera. So I got a pair of 14-inch fat hats. These were actually the prototype that they had sent me initially. I have a Zildjian deal. Shout out to Eric. He's just a really great guy, and Zildjian is just absolutely the best cymbal company. So to be able to have Zildjian cymbals at my studio for drummers to just come in and be able to choose between is just like the most phenomenal thing ever. So yeah, so these are the fat hats. I got a pair of 14-inch quick beats. These were my first hi-hat pair that I ever bought. I used to use these a lot. I really like them. They sound great. Then we have these other fun prototypes. These are actually I think these are called the trash or the trap hats. But they're just like these terrible sounding hi-hats that are just like really fun to play with. I remember I had one guy come here to do a rehearsal session, and I had left these up, and I felt bad. I was like, oh Jesus, I left those really shitty hi-hats up there. And then I walked in the room and he was playing them, and I was like, sorry, I left those hi-hats on there. I have some other ones that you could try. And he was like, oh no, I'm gonna buy a pair of these. These are my favorite now. So yeah, these are really fun. Then I got a pair of 15-inch fat hats I just got the other day. Really like these 15 inches. So I got 14 inches and I got 15 inches. And then I also have a pair of 15-inch, I think it's, what is it? The K Lights. So these ones over here, these are some of my other favorites. These are my 14-inch hybrid hats. Shout out to George Daniel from the 1975. That's why I got these. I really like them. They sound phenomenal. These are like my most used hi-hat here. These are my 16-inch lights, K Lights. Oddly, the 16 inches are just nice and quiet, and they just sound really good and really sloshy. Pretty much my go-to hi-hat, 16s. So then we move on to our crashes. I like a 19-inch crash as my left crash, and I like a 20-inch crash as my right crash. I really like the K Darks. I'm a big K Dark fan because I could boost a lot of top end, and I can just boost my cymbals and they just sound phenomenal. Cymbals are a really hard thing. I remember I used to record so many shitty bands, and I would just they would just have Sabian B8s and all these terrible cymbals, Wuhan or whatever. And you're at the mercy of this guy's cymbal that he's going to be bashing around 90% of the time, and it's just in every single mic, and it just sucks. So to be able to have these Ks as these just cymbals that just they're not too bright sounding, you can just hit them so hard, they just sound glorious, and you can just ride them so hard in the mix. So I got 19 and 20 inch Ks. I have 19 and 20 inch A customs, which are like everyone's favorite like cymbal, phenomenal sounding cymbal. I have those next door, so we'll see those when we go into the other live room. On here, I got my 23 inch Sweet Ride. Big fan of the 23 inch Sweet Ride. It's kind of like my go-to. I've got a 21 as well that I have next door that we'll see. That's like the Travis Barker one that everyone really loves. But then I also have a Mega Bell here, which is what we use for all the spirit world. You got to have your Mega Bell. Phenomenal, phenomenal cymbal for the bell. And then I have a 24 inch K light that I really like as well too. Don't break this out too much, but when you have those certain ride parts, this is just a phenomenal ride to have. And so yeah, then the last cymbal that I always really like to have set up is I always like to have one effect crash set up. So I have the Crash Doom on here. Great alternative. It's not a China, it's not a crash, it's not a ride. It just sounds really good. So this is pretty much my go-to usually. But I really like to switch all the effect crashes that I have in between songs too. So I have like 2 racks here full of effect crashes. You got your classic China. I have a custom hybrid Trash Smash. It's a really good cymbal. This is like a Trey Cool thing from Green Day. Then I also have the Cluster Crash. This sounds phenomenal. This is a newer one that I got recently. Really great cymbal. Also, the one and only Splash that I have. Someone left this here, so it's my Splash. Whoever this is. It's been well over the 30-day policy, so it's mine now. But yeah, so that's just sitting here in case anyone wants to use a Splash. I got one of these 17 inches. Zeldin accidentally sent me a 17 inch instead of a 19 inch, so I got a free 17 inch here. Here it is. Thank you, Zeldin. And then a 18 inch EFX. And then this is the Mega Bell of Doom. So it's basically a Mega Bell and a Crash of Doom put together. It's like a prototype crash. It rocks. It's super cool. I think Spirit World actually uses this as their bell that they use live. So those are all my cymbals. Then we go over to my little cubby over here where I've got all my basic drum keys and everything that I would need to attack a drum set. Got my drum bot, my tune bot, so that I can make sure my tuning's good to go. I've been using this a lot more often. I like it a lot. Then I got rock locks where, you know, shout out to Anthony Gazelle. Rock locks are a life-changing device. You put these around your lug locks. They're around every single lug here on this drum set. And this is how you keep your drums in tune. So once I tune a drum set, I lock it down with lug locks and they'll never go out of tune. Shout out to rock locks. Then I have my 3 favorite drum keys ready to go at all times. This is my Revolution drum key. It's really cool because it has this little guy that it's like it's not a torque. I don't even know what to call it, but basically if you want to loosen it, you just do this, or you can just spin it. So this is a very handy one for just like quickly tightening up everything and loosening it. Basically, if you want to tune this lug down, you just do this. And then if I want to tune it up, I flip it over and I just do this. Whereas with a traditional drum key, you got to spin it all the way around, and that takes a little bit more time out of your thing there. So that is drum key hack number 1. This is one of my favorite drum keys to change heads with and put on new things. This is my favorite drum key. This is the snare weight drum key. Phenomenal. It's got a magnet in it. That's why I have the red tape to let me know that this is the magnet one. It also has this cool rubberized piece that you can sit it on here and it won't move anywhere and it's not going to jiggle and make any noise. But yeah, I just really like the weight of this and I just really like the feel of this, and just a beautiful drum key. And then lastly, I have my Evans torque key, and this is how I basically can verify the tuning of where I'm at with a drum and get it to there and or from there and turn it into something new. This is like my main way of gauging where I am with the tension of the drum and where I want to go. So yeah, these are all 3 of my favorite tools ready to go. Then we have our drum umbrella handle, so you can raise it, lower it. I can sit here and I can be like, all right, let's grab a... And usually if I'm going to try to set the level of this, I'll just kind of like play around with some kick and snare and be like... Sounds good there. So yeah, that's how I control my drum umbrella. Then I like to have a stool sitting here next to me so that I can put my drum keys or headphones if I want to use these or whatever. I just go and have everything always sitting here. This is a pretty typical setup for me in terms of drums. Kick, snare, rack tom, floor tom. Sometimes I'll occasionally use a third tom, but it's pretty consistent in that regard. Left crash, right hi-hat, effect crash. I guess we can start by talking about the kick drum here. I'm using this really cool beater here, which is a Vic Firth beater. It actually just has, it's actually like a really cool, unique thing. People don't like think about it, but you know, you just have this piece of metal with a ball at the end of it, and you use that as your beater. So Vic Firth was like, all right, well, let's figure out a way to get the tension correct and like try to actually like redevelop the kick beater, and they made this thing, and it just feels spectacular. It's like surprising how great it feels to just play this thing. So yeah, that is the kick beater I've been using a lot recently. Sometimes I like to have a blue microphone on the front head of the kick, so I have a blue ball down there, which I just use to grab a little bit of beater sound. It just gives me a little bit more thwacky, you know, attacky top end that I can boost into there if I really need it. So yeah, that is my kick. I pretty much use a Power Stroke 3 head all the time. If we go down around the other side, we can look at the kick mic here. This is my typical miking setup. I guess I should talk about the fact that I have a kick pillow in here. This is from a guy who runs a company called Kick Pillow, and they're phenomenal pillows. I have them in every single drum. You probably insert a cool shot of all of them here, but basically it's a weighted pillow that has a non-slip surface on the bottom of it and a cool design on top. So I have one of them for every single kick drum here. So I'm currently using a Behringer. This is like I think they're calling this a BA19. Yeah, BA19A. I used to use a 91, and I was shocked how much better this sounded than a 91. I even did a poll on Instagram, and the vast majority of everyone chose and said that this was the best sounding one compared to the Beta 91. So I sold my Beta 91, and now I use this guy instead. So this is my kick in mic. Then my kick out microphone is the Telefunken M82, and I just use that right in the hole right there. I also am a big fan of the center port. Don't really like the side ports, really like the center port so that I can just hit straight up on the beater and get all that attack tone. Talking about kick tones and just kick mics in general, I've used every single kick mic that's ever existed. I've had so many love-hate relationships with kick mics over the years, and this combination, these mics, this is the best I can get kicks to sound. BA19, M82, that's my kick sound. And like I said, occasionally a little bit of the blue ball for some beater thwackiness and some uniqueness if I want to add in some distorted, weird blue ball microphone tones. So let's move over to the snare drum and talk about the snare drums here. I am a huge enthusiast of snares. I own, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 snare drums now. This is my new current flavor of the week and best friend. This is the Honest Abe. I think it's called an Odom. This is a 14x8 steel snare drum, and it just sounds fucking incredible. I am a huge fan of anything big and anything heavy, and this is just a phenomenal sounding snare. If you noticed, I have some sticky hands that I'm using on the snare heads. Moon gel, tape, etc., everything, tried it all. This is my sticky hand technique. This is no sticky hand. I like to grab one sticky hand and I lay it down just like that. It's pretty perfect. But then I go even further and I hit it just like that. And now, 14-inch controlled sound, or I mean, if I use my 13-inch snare, it'd be a 13-inch controlled sound. Controlled sound at all times, not controlled sound X. I am not a fan of the emperors or ambassadors or anything else on snares. This is my favorite snare head. This is how I rock all my snares. I also am a very big fan of the 36-inch strand. Let me grab the snare over here and bring it to show you what I mean. But I like my snare wires to be really fucking thick. I like this one. This is my favorite. I got this on every single snare here. Hazy ambassador on every side. Or is this just a regular ambassador? Hazy, whatever. Snare side ambassador. And whatever this pure sound is, the big pure sound one, the big fat one, 36, 40, whatever it is. So yeah, that is my typical go-to snare setup. Then if we talk about mics on the snare drum, I am using a 545. This is a gold 545. Thankfully, I have 4 of them. So if this were to ever break, I have 3 other ones. Like I talked about with kick, love-hate relationship with snare mics. I've tried every single snare mic. You know, if you want to ask me about the Bear, the Odyx, the Revox, the Beta, the yada yada, the M80, the Telephone, and I've tried every fucking snare mic. This microphone is my favorite snare mic. Shure 545. I got to thank Jack Joseph Puig for that one because he really reinforced that. However, where I differ with a guy like Jack Joseph Puig is he prefers to point that microphone right at the head, just straight down. I found this snare technique through a producer that I love, Nigel Godrich, and allegedly he likes to point it right over the snare drum. So when I did a bunch of testing, this is the technique that I found that works best. So it's 2 fingers up, literally pointed straight at this side over here, and it's basically almost flat, and you basically start it right off of the head. So it's just right there, you got nothing but space here. So the other thing that I really like to do is I make sure that the snare wires are underneath the microphone right here, so that when this microphone is looking at this head, the snare wires are going right here inside of this entire path. So that is my snare setup. I've been messing around with the Earthworks DM20 on snare top as a second top mic to kind of mess around with. It does sound great. I'm not sure if it's something I'm going to really stick with, but we've been making some samples with it and doing some stuff like that, and I think it sounds pretty good, so I've been using it. Then we move to our shell microphone, which is a Reslo ribbon microphone. Shout out to Eric Valentine for telling me to check those out a long time ago. I have 3 of them. They're all really awesome. That is my favorite sounding one for snare shell. That is my snare shell microphone. It's just another nice vintage vibe of a snare to bring in on there. And then what's cool is, like, you know, you get your muted top and like perfect, you know, controlled top sound, and then you just want some of that snare sound. So you raise this shell microphone up and you have more snare sound. Rocks. Then on bottom, we've got my Blue Mouse, one of my absolute favorite microphones on bottom snare. I actually originally bought that because I wanted to use it on bass cab and on kick out, because I had read about Muse using that on one of their records. And so I tried it, used to live there, and then eventually somehow I thought to try it on bottom snare, and it was just fucking phenomenal. Favorite bottom snare mic. I love bottom snare, and I use that mic all the time. In fact, I have a lot of people that'll tell me, man, you got a lot of bottom snare sound in your snare. I think you could turn that bottom snare mic down. And I'm like, no, I could probably turn that up a little bit more because I love that microphone. So that is my snare sound. Then we can go on to toms here. I use ATM 25s on toms. They're the best top head microphone. Again, tried them all, you know, Odyx, 421s, etc., etc. ATM 25s, favorite, best sounding tom microphone I've ever used. That was a Terry Date inspiration. Heard Terry Date really loved him on toms, so always loved Terry Date drum sounds. And then eventually saw one of his videos where he talked about how he loved them. So yeah, Terry Date, ATM 25s, those are my tom sounds. And recently I have been messing with, again, the Earthworks DM20s as my bottom tom microphones. So I have those mounted to the bottom of these toms here. We did a whole drum sample library recently and tried out every single microphone in existence. You know, we tried the blue mic on bottom tom and et cetera, made sure that this was the best setup, and even tried the DM20s on top, ATM25s on bottom, ATM25 on top, DM20 on bottom. That is the best tom sound I've ever gotten, and so that is now my tom sound. Then we move on to hi-hat and ride, and I use 451s for those. These were like the first overhead microphones that I bought when I was younger, and tried to use those as my space pair of overheads. Hated them, never got a great sound out of them, always wanted to sell them, but they always ended up being the best hi-hat and ride microphones that I ever had, so I never sold them because they just sounded phenomenal. A new thing for me that I've been rocking recently is this Lewitt microphone. This is a really cheap microphone, it's $100. But basically I thought to myself, well, if I'm doing two overheads and I got a hi-hat and ride mic, then each cymbal technically has its own mic except for my effect crash. So I decided to get this cheap $100 Lewitt to put on my effect crash here, and it's a phenomenal sounding microphone. I'm afraid to try it on a hi-hat and ride and see if they sound better than these guys, because I don't want to have to sell these ones and buy this one instead. It's just phenomenal. It sounds great. I used it on acoustic guitar the other day, and it was just phenomenal. That'll be my go-to acoustic guitar mic now. It just is a really, really great sounding mic for $100. Incredible. So yeah, those are my cymbal microphones there. Lastly, I have my overheads. These are my RN17s. I mean, I tried every overhead scenario that you could try. Rhodes, Neumann, AKGs, Blue, Soyuz, et cetera. These are the best sounding overheads I've ever gotten in my life. So my cymbal setup and the way that I kind of typically do this is I rock these 20 inches up from the cymbal, and then I rock it 4 feet away from the snare. So they look kind of a little lopsided, but that's because I want them to have the same distance from the cymbals here. So 4 feet away from the snare, 20 inches up from the cymbals. I try to get these like a good 6 inches away from the spot where people hit. I like to point really like right at the attack. So for example, like whoever I was just recording was hitting here a lot, so that's why the microphone's like right here. The ride, someone was hitting right here a lot, so that's why it's pointed here, not here. You know what I mean? You would think traditionally you'd probably want to put it here, but the guy was hitting over here, so that's why it's over there. Yeah, so this is measured 20 inches away, 4 feet away. I pan that hard left, hard right, hard right, hard right, hard left. And those are my cymbal sounds. This is my close mic drum sound. This is my drums right here. So the other thing to really mention is that like underneath the drum umbrella where we are, it's very controlled. Sounds very, very smooth, very consistent. Altering the height is going to change the decay of these drums, and it's going to change the response of them. So, you know, we play with that obviously until it sounds great. But the second we step outside of this drum umbrella, the ambience and the beauty of the room like really shines and actually like comes into focus. So that's why I have a bunch of room mics that I place out here. So if we go through the other area here, I like to have my U47. This is I bought this microphone hoping to have this be my vocal mic. Loved it on vocals, and then eventually tried it on mono drums and never changed it. Big fan of Brendan O'Brien. Brendan O'Brien's like drum sound is very like roomy, very like lots of mono ambience. Allegedly one of his tricks is this U47, 4 feet up, 8 feet away from the snare. So this is 8 feet from the snare, 4 feet up. This is where we have the microphone, and we even mark it down here and make sure that it's good to go. And so this is my mono drum sound. This is like one of my most important microphones of my drum sound. I rock this in figure 8 mode because it just has way more low end. It just sounds punchy as fuck. So yeah, then I used to rock a spaced pair of ribbons, but I actually changed it into this XY pair right here. This is a DIY pair of ribbons that I built, and it came with this really cool, like, you know, coupler. But when I would do it panned out, my snare would be heavier on one side, kick would be heavier on one side, the frequency balance wasn't the same. So eventually I put them together and I just found my stereo image was just like really perfect and just sounded much better and much more controlled. Yeah, then, important to talk about that it's very live sounding here, but we have the space coupler here so that this breaks up any flutter echo. So there's no flutter echo happening inside of this whole portion here. It's very live. So all these microphones are capturing all this really nice ambience here. Another new microphone that I've been messing with. This is our binaural microphone. It's been a dream of mine to have a binaural microphone. I want the Neumann $8,000 microphone at some point in time in my life, but we'll start with the cheaper $700 one instead. So this is Louis. This is my new binaural microphone. And I pretty much use him the way that you might think. I find a place where it sounds good to me, and I put Louis, and I record him and let him be my stereo mic. So he's here right now because when I sat here the other day, the stereo imaging was really great. If I got down here, my tom is right here on my right ear, over here on my left ear. Everything is very nice and symmetrical. The panning is really symmetrical, really nice. And right here, this is where it sounded best. So I put him here and plugged him in, and we got Louis on a stereo ambience here. So that is our stereo microphone. We can talk about my microphone cables. Everything is patched into my custom DIY little patch bay here. We have 24 microphone preamp ins. So you got 16 on top, preamps 1 through 16 here. Everything is resistor color coded. So we do our brown Roy G Biv code here, and we try to stay very nice and organized with that so that if you see any color, you know which preamp it's going to. So you got 16 on the top. You got the extra 8 on the bottom here. We have 4 speak-on tie lines so that I could bring in an amplifier or a power amp or anything. And then I have 4 extra XLR lines so that I could send any audio I want to and from through there. Next to that, we have our power play distributor here. This is so we can send 16 channels of audio into our headphone controllers right here. We got 4 headphone controllers, so we can have 4 people rocking in here with an independent mix. So drummers have their own mixes. We have, a guitar player standing here and do scratch tracks. That is all ready to go. Let's talk about I guess we could talk about, we got sandbags there. We have a couple extra mics. These are my other Reslows ready to go if I want to pull up some extra things. Then, I have my organized mic stand, or mic wall here, mic cable wall, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, I'm very organized in terms of that I like everything to be really consistent with cable numbers. So, for example, you might have 4 people come in here and jam. So they might bring in an amplifier, and they might need an IEC power cable to plug into that amplifier. So we got 4 IEC power cables in every single room. I got 3 right here. One of them is being used for this tube microphone power supply here. So we got 3 on the wall. Next to it, you've probably got 4 guitar players who are going to want to plug into an amplifier. So guess what? I've got 4 long guitar cables with the right angled connector, so it's nice and clean. So here's my 4 guitar cables ready for them. They might want power, right? Each of those. So I've got 4 extension cables. What do you know? They might want to plug in some pedals. They might want to, try and do a couple other things. So I've got 8 other guitar cables ready to go so that you can plug in any extra things that you want. You might want to plug in a guitar head into a cabinet. Well, I got 4 speaker cables for you to do that with. And then if we want to plug a cab into the wall, because I have those 4 speak-on, I have my 4 speak-on to TS connectors so that I could connect from the wall into a cab or from a guitar head into the wall. And I will show you how we can distribute that signal throughout the entire studio here. So those are those tools. Let's talk about my snare drums that I have in my collection. We talked briefly about my Honest Abe 8-inch snare drum. This is the next snare drum in the collection. This is an Honest Abe 4-inch piccolo. And it looks tiny, but this thing is fucking heavy. It's like 25 pounds. Like I said, that one's like at least 35 pounds. This is at least 25 pounds. Here's a cool logo with our boy, good old Paul Odom, Honest Abe drums, best fucking friends. This snare sounds fucking awesome. If you've ever wanted to get that Saint Anger snare tone, this is pretty close to it, to be honest. It just sounds fucking insane. But actually, if you really wanted to get that Saint Anger snare tone, well, then you would use this acrylic drum right here that I borrowed from my buddy Mel, because allegedly Saint Anger, they used an acrylic snare drum tuned all the way up with no snare strainer. So as you can tell, this is not my snare, because if it was mine, I would have that fat strainer on here. So this is obviously Mel's snare that I'm borrowing, but it's a great sounding snare. And also, it's got the head that I wouldn't use, because I use the controlled sound, you know what I'm saying? So that's a dead giveaway that this is not Sam's snare in this studio here. So next we have the DW Performance snare. This snare fucking rocks. Really fucking good snare. Crazy insane range of tuning. Really low, really high, just phenomenal snare. I think you can get this for like 300 bucks. This is a phenomenal snare. I highly recommend this. Then we have my Ludwig Black Magic. Always been a big fan of the Superphonic and of the Black Beauty. Walked into a snare shop or a drum shop to pick up some drum heads when I was starting a record with a band called Gay Paris. Saw this snare and I said, I'm buying that snare and we're using it on your record. And we did, and it sounds great. And this is a phenomenal snare drum. So I have so many snares that I have to have some of them over here on the side, but I try to keep them all on my shelf over here. So then these are the other snare drums we have. This is a 13-inch Yamaha brass. This is the first snare I ever bought. I thought I was buying a 14-inch, but I mistakenly bought a 13-inch. But it sounds amazing. And this is the sound of the first Stories So Far record I did, and of Basement's Color Me and Kindness. This is that fucking snare drum. Here it is. Haven't been using it too much recently, but it rocks. Then this is a Slingerland. This actually used to be a 6-lug, and I had my friend convert it to be a 10-lug, and then we put this old purple wrap on it, and yep, this is my Slingerland snare. This was the famous snare sound on a record called Haze that I did with American Scene. Really good snare sound, really thumpy and awesome. This is a Pearl Export. This is the cheapest snare I own. I bought this for $40, but I bought this because this was Eric Valentine's favorite snare, and the snare that he used for Third Eye Blind and some early Smash Mouth and Queens of the Stone Age, and this snare fucking rocks. Really good snare. Love it. I use it a lot. So yeah, there's that. Then next we have a Pork Pie Bob. It's their Black Beauty. This is probably the second snare drum I ever bought. So first one, second one. Haven't used this snare on too many things that are like notable. It had a big ringing problem, so I used to really like using an Evans dry head on it, and then I changed the rims to die cast, and that kind of helped out quite a bit. Good snare, works better for lower tunings, but yeah, that's that. Then next we have our Concept Maple snare. I got this because, you know, if I had the drum set, I might as well get a snare drum to kind of match with it. Important noting that the drum set, I guess I should have mentioned this earlier, but the drum set came with wood hoops, but I actually converted to the whole thing to triple flange hoops because I think it tunes much better and it sounds much better and it's way more flexible. So this is the original wood hoop, and I left it that way because I don't have a snare that's like that. So this is a cool vibey thing, cooler for like more like soft stuff and like slower jams and like lower tune stuff. But yeah, there's that. Then we got the PDP. This is the Bruno Mars drummer, and it has the Panda on it because I guess his nickname is Panda or whatever. But this snare rocks, man. This is how you get that New Jack Swing fucking sound. This is my first piccolo that I owned. Really fucking awesome snare. Super fun vibe. If you've ever listened to that New Jack Swing stuff, you know what I'm talking about. Great song, or great snare sound. And then here is the bell brass snare. It is getting very dirty and looking very worn. This is probably our most used snare drum. This is like a very, very, very heavy snare drum. This is a snare drum that I had custom ordered from the same company that made the Tama Bell Brass snare drums. So this is basically a Tama Bell Brass build. The only thing different is instead of the weird rolled hoops that they would do, I have the die cast hoops, but they are also cast bronze. So this entire snare drum, including the hoops, is cast bronze. The only thing that is not are the throw off and the lug locks here, or the tube lugs there. So those are my snare drums. We got one other snare drum in the other room that I'll show you. You all know what snare drum that is, but we'll get to that shortly. Then let's talk about my shelf and everything that I have in here. I got all my percussion, anything you would want to do percussion-wise. Like I got this fucking, look at this thing. No big deal. Do you know anyone who has something that fucking big? So, you know, random harmonicas, lots of tambos. This is by far the coolest percussion item. This is a one-shot. Actually, the dude Chris from Saves the Day told me to get one of these. Told me this was like the coolest percussion, and he's right. This is the coolest percussion. It has no recoil, so it only gets only one shot. So sick. Then, you know, if you grab two of them, then you could do this type of move. You could be like, whereas a traditional shaker, you know, it does this whole thing. It's got the recoil. You can't do one, but with the one shot, just one. One of my favorite percussion tricks. So yeah, that's the box percussion. Whenever it's time to do a bunch of percussion, we break that out. Then I got all of my mic little bags here, very neatly organized. You might notice that all my mics are on stands. I like to use my mics and I like them ready to go. So I try to leave everything set up all the time instead of just have my mics put away all the time and have to build my sessions every day. That's for people who run recording studios. This is a production facility and we are making music and records every day. So everything is always ready to go. Underneath that, I got my two extra 545s. Like I said, the gold 545s. You know what I'm saying, partner? You know. Yeah, anyways, there they are. Then I have one extra DM20 from Earthworks. These mics are pretty great sounding. Yeah, then after that, all my microphone accessories, any extra cables. These are some ribbon boosters if you need to make your ribbons a little louder or something like that. I like to use those with the Reslos sometimes. Then all my other microphone accessories, you know, windscreens and stereo bars and anything you would need for mic accessories ready to go. Then I got some pop filters up here ready to go. You can put one on a mic stand if you want to do it that way. This one's one of my favorite ones to use. I hate clipping a pop filter onto the same stand as a microphone. I just hate it. I'd rather use a different stand and do that. So that's that. Then underneath that, I got some extra windscreens where I have some 7 and all of these little nice little cases that I could put my sensitive mics in. Anything that is going to make my microphones, you know, very beautiful. Then after that, I got all my drum accessories. I'm very organized in terms of extra drum keys, extra drum lugs, extra bass drum lugs, all the little foams that you would need for your cymbals. Then I got, you know, extra wing nuts if you need those. If your hi-hat needs another clutch or you want to switch out between a couple hi-hats real quick, you can have them ready to go with this guy. So got those ready to go. Then over here are my other two favorite drawers. This is my lug lock drawer where I got my lug locks ready to go. Got cotton balls for when you need to change those heads. That's just a good trick. Put a couple cotton balls inside of the drum so that it deadens your bottom head. So they bounce up and they pop back down and help deaden that sound. These are some more rock locks here. Then I got, you know, some bass drum pads and some snare strainer stuff. All your drum stuff. This is also a thing that I love. The drum dial conditioning edge. If you're gonna put a new head on, like put this on your bearing edge. It's so good. It's like chapstick. It smells good too, by the way. Teresa, my assistant, always says that she wants this as her chapstick. It smells great. So yeah, there is that. And then lastly, the fun drawer, the sticky hand. So if you ever need to mute a drum, just walk over to the sticky hand drawer, grab a sticky hand and do it up. And or if you want to be, you know, an immature person and hit your friends with a sticky hand like I'm about to do to Mel, and you can be like, what's up? Let's see if I get that camera. Oh yeah, you know what I'm saying, woo. All right, anyways. Then on top of that, I have some mallets, in case you need to use some mallet stuff. Really nice when you're tuning drums. Then I have my very cool case full of some extra drum keys and all my snare weights and muting things that you would want. Then here are all my different beaters, because we like to change beater sounds for everything. You know, sometimes you want to use a wood beater, sometimes you want to use a nice felt, sometimes you want to use a little, you know, a little fucking tennis ball. So that's pretty cool. And then this one's also pretty cool, the poofy one. What's up? They also have different sound, different vibe. So there's all the beaters there. Then here are all the used drumsticks. So if you forget a drumstick, don't worry, pretty much got you. You're good to go. Just reach into the used drumstick pile. An extra kick pillow in case anyone needs it for the kick drum, ready to go. This is the infamous kick pad, thanks to old Jason Sukoff. Let's say that you're a drummer who is doing a bunch of double kick, then we'll pretty much replace your kick drum and use this old tennis ball guy, and this will be your kick drum sound instead. That way we can make it all quiet in the room and replace that kick trigger with a nice sample and avoid any flams and any issues. So we've got that ready to go in case we have those sessions. Then I have a speaker here. This is actually a Gibson Gold Tone speaker, and I use this to lay on top of snare drums to reamp snare drum sounds with. So I got my special out and I plug it into my power amp and I'll run my signal to my snare and I will reamp a snare with this. So that's always ready to go. Then bottom shelf, I got some kick pedals so that you can swap between some double kick pedals. I got a DW, I got a Iron Cobra double kick, and then I got a couple extra drumsticks. Those ones are ones that have been thwacked by a snare pretty hard, but hey, you know, if you got to match and you got to make it fine, you got your pick down there. So that basically covers the West live room. Let's head into another room. So let's make our way to the kitchen for the Panda Studios, which is more like a break room. Here we are. We got our fridge with all of our essentials here. Let's give you a nice look. You've got the Red Bull, the LaCroix, the Modelo, the Liquid Death, the White Claw, the Fort Point, and we'll do the stand-in of Peroni instead of Trumer today. So Peroni it is. And then we also have our Hairball Audio beer glasses ready to go. Don't mind our assistant Teresa's two Jimmy Dean sausages in the back there, but yeah, that's our fridge. And then here is our kegerator, which is actually full of sparkling water. So I make my own sparkling water. I have my own mixture of minerals that I use to put into our water here to make it a very great tasting sparkling mineral water. And then we carbonate it and we pour it here. So this is my custom sparkling water with the amazing orange amplifier PBR tap handle. Phenomenal. And then you can grab one of these Primavera cups here for your water. This is, well, I got it from Primavera Festival in Barcelona. Shout out to Barcelona. I love Barcelona. Then, yeah, we got a few little goodies here. You know, we got our Panda Studios sticker. You know, we have our fortune from Panda Express that says, give it everything you've got. You know, you got to let those people know. Topo bottle opener. We got our wine bottle opener. And then, you know, I got this nice little thing here to let people know that where words fail, music speaks. And microwave, you know, please wipe down before and after each use on this thing. We've kept this for many years. It's been very clean. You got your tea, you got your coffee, you got your basic salt and pepper and your plates and your basic things that you would need here. Also important to note all the amazing artwork we've got in here. I really like this one here. It's a bunch of flying cocks. Pretty cool. And then, yeah, some articles of some magazines that has some interviews there. One of the infamous ones here would be the EQ magazine article where I wrote in and talked shit about Eddie Kramer, legendary producer, produced Jimi Hendrix. So it's a famous little excerpt here that says Eddie Kramer versus Sam Pura. What an amazing headline. Yeah, some more articles here. Then this is one of my favorite pieces of artwork in the studio here. This is actually a panda breaking through the artwork piece a la Bones Brigade, the skateboarding company. And this is actually drawn by Steve Caballero. He was living in San Jose, and I hit him up and was like, yo, you want to paint me a little piece for the studio? And he did this, which is awesome because he's a fucking legend. Tony Hawk Pro Skater, fucking Pal Peralta, Bones Brigade, amazing, awesome Steve Cab in the Panda Studios. Then a little cool art piece here by this dude Joe Gary, who is a tattoo artist. Then some cute little Etsy little prints here, you know, probably for like some baby room, but you know, why not? You know, get a nice little panda one here. Giants color, go Giants, you know what I'm saying? Then also, you know, the panda as the astronaut, because we're going to the moon, baby. That panda coin is pumping. We're gonna go moon, baby. We're gonna fucking go all the way to the top. And lastly, we got once we get to the top, we'll get in our big old robot and we'll explore space. So this was unfortunately given to me by from the band. So I try not to think about that because it's a beautiful piece here, and yeah, no big deal, it's on the wall. Before we move on to the next room, the last feature I want to show is my very handy hidden networking wall here, where I have all of my internet and my security cameras and my Hue lights and my Google wireless internet all set up, ready to go, so that you can access it at any point. So when we do streams, we can just take it off and plug it in real quick, and then you can just put that thing away and you would never know. Just looks like a panel. So there it is. That is the kitchen at the Panda Studios. Before we proceed, I'm going to grab myself a Peroni. Now we make our way down to the west bathroom. As we do, might as well take note of our Nest thermostat. Controlled the entire studio. I can control it from home, control it from here. It's amazing. Also, look at my little JMP key rack here, so we can all hang up our keys. Looks nice and gorgeous. Also, fire extinguisher. Anything goes wrong, you got it right there. Just grab that thing, put it out. You want to hang up your jacket, put it right there. Anyways, here is our bathroom. This was remodeled and redecorated by my wife, Kristen. Shout out to Kristen, I love you. Yep, sink, toilet with a heated bidet. No big deal. Thanks to Drug Seeker, Nick Matos, for getting me that for the studio. Yeah, all your little basic tools here. And then a nice little sound trap panel that actually hides the water heater conveniently. Then a cool little piece of art here by a friend named Kelsey. And we got this other really cute little art piece here of a panda, like, you know, some space, some, you know, avant-garde little paint, some minimalism going on. It's like a beautiful mushroom acid trip. And then, you know, panda in the tub. Who could go wrong with that, right? Gorgeous. And so, yeah, then you got your shower where you can hang out and get yourself all rinsed off after a long day of recording drums. We have the beautiful fountain head that comes out from the top. You know, little small shower, but it gets the job done. Oddly, one of my favorite showers that I've ever been in my life. Yeah, so that is the west bathroom. We can move on to the isolation booth. Okay, so here we are in what I call the ISO room of the Panda Studios. You might be able to tell immediately that it's a very dead sounding room. I think this is like a 8x8, maybe like 8x10 room. This was actually the first addition that we had done to the studio. That is one unit over there. We are now into the second unit. Our kitchen is on the second unit as well too, but basically we start off on that side, eventually got our second side. This was the first thing that we added into the studio, and I wanted a specific room just to mic up guitar cabs and have ready to go so I could separate my cabs from my drummer and do simultaneous live sessions. So that's how this room was built. Really like the treatment in this room. We've got Ultra Touch in all the walls here with the fabric on top of it. We have a really cool ceiling design, this nice little geometric, different spaced thing here. It's just a really cool, comfortable room. I really like tracking vocals in here too. I've tracked a lot of drums in here as well too. It's just a good vibe of a room. I really like it, and it sounds very good, and it's very dead, and it's awesome. So let's talk about in and outs of the room. Most important, we have our patch bay tie line. I built and wired that whole thing myself. So basically, the way that it works is our top row is the row that goes to the east or the west control room. So that is how I, in my control room over there, in the west control room, can patch into this room and mic up anything. So I've got 20 XLR inputs into this room, so I can mic up 20 things and put it all into my patch bay over there. I also have 4 speak-on lines, so I can run all those heads into my room, into these cabs, into this room. So I plug the cabs directly into the wall and run the amps directly into this room, into these cabs here. So we got 16 on top that go to west, 16 underneath that go to east. Then we have our 4 extra lines that go to west, our 4 extra lines that go to east, and then I did 2 lines that go directly into the east live room. So if you have a guy standing in that room with a guitar head, he can just put his guitar thing right here, patch right in. And I also have 2 speak-on lines, so you can do the same thing. So there are all the in and outs of the room here. So the way that we currently have it set up is we have our orange cab. This is my favorite cab of all time. This is my orange 4x12. This has Celestion V30s in it. This is the cab. I used to have a Mesa cab that is the cab that everyone thinks is the best sounding Mesa cab, and this sounded better every single time. Everyone thinks this is the best sounding cab, so this is my main cab. So I use a 57 on a robot on this one. Through the years of working with the robot, I've discovered I pretty much like my microphone dead fucking center on the fucking cone, immediately in the middle of it. And when I move it from anywhere else, it sounds phasey and a little weird. So I just go dead center pretty much all the time now. So 57 on this guy. Then my next cab here is my Bogner 2x12. I really love this cab, and I used to run this live when I was a guitar player. I would run my orange head into this one, and I would run a cleaner PV head into this guy. So that way I had 2 amps, so I had my clean amp and I had my heavy amp. I was trying to be Wes Borland, you know, have my fucking JC120 style amp and my heavy amp. So this is my Bogner cab. It sounds really good with like amps like the Vox, like the Fender, anything that is like really clean and textured and like boutique sounding. So this has V30s as well. I only use my ribbon microphone on this. This is a Bayer Dynamic M160. This is my favorite guitar microphone of all time. It sounds phenomenal. The ribbon broke at one point. I sent it in, got it modded. It sounds even better, and I've never ever had to have it fixed ever since. So I rock that on this cab. Like I said earlier, this is the 57, but one thing I didn't point out that I should point out is that this is the yellow Crimson modded transformer. That's the one that I like to use on guitars. I think it sounds phenomenal. So yeah, those are my 2 main cabs here. Big heavy amps, cleaner amps. Then, occasionally, you got a guitar overdub or a lead or something that needs to sit on top of those guitars. So I like to switch up either the orange or the Bogner cab with this Marshall cab here. And this is loaded with creamback speakers. And it just is another alternative that's going to help give it a different frequency space for the guitar to sit in. I like to use the 421 on this one for diversity. Otherwise, I'll grab any of the other microphones and use that as well. So these 3 cabs are always ready to go. Then if we switch to our other side here, this is my Old Crow bass cab. This is filled with 6 10-inch speakers, Celestian speakers. This thing is a fucking monster. It sounds really good. Any like SVT, orange 8200 type of amps, anything that's going to pump a lot of volume is going to sound great through this. I really like using a 421 on cabs. I also like using my SE Titan on cabs as well too, but I traditionally have just a 421 on this cab, and then I use the Titan on this guy. So this is the Ampeg B100R. I got this because one of my favorite bass tones is on a Saves the Day record, and I was told that they used this on it by Chris himself from Saves the Day. He told me this was the amp that they recorded, and I got one, and it fucking rocks, and I use it all the time. So these two things make up my amplified bass sound, like SVT, Orange 8200 into this thing. Then the combo, boom. This is my SE Titan microphone. Phenomenal microphone. I got it because Eric Valentine said in an interview a long time ago that he was using this anywhere that he would put a FET 47 and liked this better than a FET 47. So I got one, and it sounds fucking great. Really good on outside kick. Phenomenal on this bass cab. I use it in figure 8 mode. Blowing sounds better in figure 8 mode. And yeah, that is my bass amps there. Then this is my JC120. For those who don't know, this is like the best clean amplifier of all time. Like I said earlier, this is the Wes Borland clean sound. And the reason it was the Wes Borland clean sound is because it was the Metallica clean sound. So that's why he used that as well. So this is a fucking awesome clean amplifier. Sounds really, really good. I got a Crimson modded 57 ready to go on it, or a 160 if I want to use those. Always just ready to go. So those are the cabinets. I guess it's important to note that they are on cinder blocks. We want to decouple them from the floor and raise the speakers away from the floor as much as possible to get the least amount of reflections going on in the room. The room's already pretty fucking dead. So we're just doing everything we can to try to just get these things isolated as best as possible. So I guess we could talk about some guitars. This is my guitar collection in this room. It starts with this Epiphone Silverburst. I was always a big fan of Tool. Tool had the really nice Silverburst, and then I also really thought it was badass when Mastodon started using Silverburst at one point in time too. So I always wanted a Silverburst, and then they came out with the Epiphone, and I was like, yo, let me get a Silverburst to try out this thing called an Evertune on. So I bought this guitar off of Craigslist for $200 so I could install this Evertune bridge on it and give this whole Evertune thing a shot. So what is Evertune? Well, Evertune is a device that mounts into your guitar. You have to route a big significant portion of your guitar, aka ruin your guitar, and fully convert it, and it will never be able to be unconverted again after you do it to an Evertune. And what this does is, if you move these strings, you can see that these saddles move too. And this allows this guitar to be set into a range where it can never go out of tune. No matter how hard I bend it, it will not go out of tune. That way I can record a bunch of power chords and a bunch of things like that, and it's perfect. So for example, it should be perfectly, I mean, I haven't played this guitar in years. It is still pretty in tune. So anyways, this was my first Evertune guitar that I did, and it made me convert all of my guitar collection. So I don't really use this one as much anymore. This is kind of like this one's been beat around quite a bit. And it sounds a little dull compared to everything else and a little burly, but it's a really good guitar, and I like playing on it because it feels good. But yeah, this is the one that started the whole Evertune thing. So then we move on to my Les Paul. Like anyone who would be kind of smart, they'd be like, well, I don't want to convert my Les Paul. So I had done my Epiphone before I did my Gibson Les Paul, but I converted it, and it made the guitar even better, and it made it even more likely to be put on a record. So this is kind of my main guitar. This is the thing that I use when I start like most records. I'm kind of like, if you're going to start recording a guitar part that is a power chord, you're probably going to play it on this thing, and then we're going to go from there. Maybe it sounds better on this guitar. Maybe it sounds better on that guitar. We'll figure it out. But this is kind of the main guitar that we start on. Everything that is in every guitar that I have is like highly, highly, highly modified. Down to like pickups and like active ingredients inside of it. So for example, this guitar has got like upgraded pickups, and it also has push-pull pots. so that you can turn this whole thing into single coils. This guitar over here, like we had just talked about, this has like Tom Anderson pickups. These are like really cool, like unique pickups. So everything is like upgraded a little bit and made better than what it actually came as. This guitar here, this is my Gibson SG. This is my most important guitar in the studio here. This is the guitar that I played on all of my tours with, like Heavy Heavy Lolo. Like I took this guitar to Australia and played this thing with me. This is my main guitar. We had an unfortunate accident where someone stepped on one of the input jacks and it broke the faceplate of the guitar. So we had to strip it down and get it repainted. So I got it painted sparkle white. It was like this like ugly white that was like fading and turning yellow. So I had to get the whole thing redone. So anyways, it's now this beautiful sparkle white color. We filled in that front, converted it to a side input jack here. And then we added these really nice locking tuners up here and painted the faceplate here white as well. This was a white headstock. So yeah, beautiful guitar. It's got upgraded Duncan pickups in it. I think this is a Duncan custom hybrid in the bridge here. I think it's probably just a JB in the neck. But again, you got your push-pull. Everything is modded on here. Evertune guitar. This is one of my favorite guitars. We used it all over the new Spirit World record. This is another go-to. Like I said, my personal favorite guitar. This is my beauty. This is my little baby. Then we move on to a fun one here. This is a Gibson Les Paul Jr. Wanted to have one that had a P90 pickup style thing in here, so we got this guy, and we Evertuned it as well. So this is a really fun guitar. The only thing that sucks is P90s have a bunch of noise, so you kind of have to deal with that. But yeah, there it is. Rockin' ass guitar. Really cool for like overdubs and power chords and any, you know, really like snarly like octaves and leads like that. So super cool. Next, this is one of my favorite fucking guitars. This guitar fucking rocks. This is a Squier Supersonic. I've always wanted one of these guitars. First time I saw this was in a photo with Omar from At the Drive-In, and he was playing one, and it looked wild because that fool is a left-handed player. So it looked normal, but it's really weird because like the volume knobs are up here. So actually what it is it's a right-handed guitar that's meant to look like a left-handed guitar. So it looks crazy. It looks like you'd want to play it like a lefty, but actually it's meant to be played this way. So that dude from At the Drive-In was playing it like this. So it looks kind of more traditional this way, but it is actually meant to be this. It's reverse headstock. Beautiful guitar. They reissued it, and I was like, all right, well, I want to make this like my Tom DeLonge Strat. So Evertuned it, and I put a Duncan Invader in here, and yeah, sounds fucking awesome. Really like this for a lot of overdubs, a lot of fun things. Also, take note of its really fucking cool strap, the Panda strap. Very baller and badass. Pandas whenever and wherever we can. Then that brings us over to this side of the room. This is my Strat. One of my favorite guitar players of all time is Albert Hammond Jr. from The Strokes. And I've always wanted a Strat. And then Daft Punk's album, Random Access Memories, came out, and Nile Rodgers was playing a Strat over it and making some of the coolest Strat shit I had heard in a minute. And I was like, that's it. I'm buying a Strat. So I bought this Strat for $300. You'll kind of notice a theme of all these things that I talk about with all my gear. I like really cheap shit. I think really cheap shit is really cool and really inspiring because I can have a bunch of different ones. I don't believe that a guitar should cost over $300. I think you can get really, really, really good stuff really cheap. And then you can modify the fucking shit out of it. So I got this for $300, then modify the shit out of it by putting all brand new pickups in it. And this thing has a really cool pickup in it. It's got a Duncan P rail. And the way that this works is that if I pop up this tone knob here, this is now using the P90 right here. But if I pop it down, both of them down, this is now a standard humbucker using the hot rail and the P90 as the humbucker. If I pop my volume up here, it is just the hot rail, just using that single coil there. And if I pop both of them up, it is a humbucker, but instead of being in series, it is in parallel and or out of phase or whatever, which gives you another tone. So in the bridge pickup, you've got 4 different tones. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then if you want to combine it with this pickup right here as well too, oh Jesus Christ, you got another 4 tones. So you got 8 tones right there. Super cool, really versatile guitar. I love this. This is one of my favorite things to play. Also Evertuned, obviously. Love maple fretboards, real big fan of it. This guitar rocks. Also, you know, I upgraded it by putting the gold pickguard on it, and it just rocks. I just love this guitar. Phenomenal guitar. Then this is my Telecaster. I got this for, I think, $400. Amazing, gorgeous Telecasters. Absolute fucking gorgeous body. Everyone who, you know, like comes through here eventually at some point looks at this thing and is like, damn, that is a really fucking beautiful telly. It just is a gorgeous body. Even the back looks just phenomenal too. But had this converted with an Evertune on it, sounds better than ever. The only thing that sucks about this guitar is I just hate those old telly style fucking through hole tuners. I want to upgrade those tuners at some point, but it's okay. I never cared enough to do it. But this has a Duncan quarter pounder in it. So again, you can coil tap that or make it the humbucker that it is. Really, really, really gorgeous guitar. Sounds phenomenal. Neck pickup, really good. We use this one a lot. Then this is my ES335. I bought this guitar for $200. No big deal. $200, put the Evertune on it. Then I put a Gibson Dirty Fingers, which is the pickup that Tom DeLonge uses in his 335 model. So this is my attempt to be Tom DeLonge's 335 guitar, but with an Evertune. Gorgeous guitar, feels phenomenal to play, phenomenal sounding guitar, and really just one of the most kick-ass fucking straps here. Panda, rainbow, blue, just absolutely gorgeous. I think that Panda's wearing a cape too. It's like flying through the air. Like, it's a fucking badass guitar. Yeah, absolutely love this guitar. One of my favorites. Then next in here is sometimes, you know, you want to drop tune and you want to go heavy and you want to go pretty wild. So I got this Jim Root Jazzmaster. This guitar fucking rocks. I am not a fan of EMG pickups, and I always used to be totally against them. But this guitar sounds great. And I've never thought to change pickups because it just sounds great and does exactly what it's meant to do. I put this really cool impeach sticker on. That was during the old Trump era, so now we don't know which president this means anymore. But anyways, it just reminded me of Kirk Hammett's Biohazard sticker that he had, this big orange one, so I wanted to put that on here because I just thought it looked fucking badass. Yeah, really good guitar, locking tuners. Nothing about this is upgraded. This is like the only stock guitar in the studio, and oddly, this is probably the most expensive guitar in the studio. This one's like $1,700 brand new. I think I got an artist discount on this, but it was still a very expensive guitar, especially compared to everything else in here. But we use this a lot for all the drop tune stuff. Really fun guitar. That is that one. Then we've got this Squire Telecaster that looks like junk, and it kind of is junk. And the whole reason we have this thing is tuned to be our Nashville style guitar. So this gets very rare use. It's in the occasional part where I say, hey, it would be awesome if you played that guitar riff on a Nashville style guitar. What is a Nashville style guitar, Sam? Well, a Nashville style guitar is a guitar that is an octave up from its normal position. So it's basically the strings that you put on an acoustic to make it a 12-string guitar. So it's very unique gauge, but the whole thing is just an octave up. So all these riffs just sound really cool. Cool power chord riffs, open chord riffs, stuff like that. So this is upgraded, has really nice Duncans in it. This is like, you know, less than $100 guitar. The only thing we did is just put the nice pickups in it and then make it our standard Nashville tuning guitar. So either if it didn't cost me $300 to get an Evertune bridge and $300 to install it, I would put an Evertune on this, but I would never use this guitar for more than $600 with a guitar bar. And so that's why it is an un-Evertuned guitar. Next is my J Mascis Jazzmaster. Love this guitar. I saw it when they debuted this at NAMM, and it was debuted for $380. That is my favorite number, 38. So I was like, this is the guitar for me. Gorgeous guitar, amazing, pickguard, just amazing look, amazing feel. The whole thing as a stock guitar was just a phenomenal guitar. Like, we used that hard with no issues, but we did the whole overhaul on this entire thing. Mastery bridge, Mastery hardware tailpiece here. Then we changed the pickups. We have brand new Duncan pickups in here. These are the actual J Mascis ones that he uses live. And all new components inside the guitar. And this thing is awesome. So this is like our one unever tuned guitar. So when people are like, yo, I have this riff and it's all these bends, and then we just say, just grab the Jazzmaster. This is like meant for you to like shred on and have that be your guitar. So lots of those type of riffs. Great guitar, phenomenal guitar. Then we go to one of my oldest guitars. This is like my childhood guitar. This is the guitar that I used to play in high school at the talent shows. Got this for like $500. I remember the day that this came to my house and how happy I was to get this guitar. And when I woke up the next morning, I remember waking up, my eyes opened, I looked at my wall and I was like, it's on my wall still. It exists. It's actually my guitar. So yeah, I love this guitar. This is a very sentimental guitar. I don't use this very much. We just have it hanging around here as another jam guitar that is on Evertuned that you can hang and play. But I'm saving this one for my child Roman and or my next child that I'll eventually have. So yeah, those are my guitars. So like we talked about in our other rooms, we kind of have a theme when it comes to all the cables on the wall. I like to be really organized. So we have our 4 speaker cables in case you want to grab a head and plug it in any of those cables or any of the cabs. You got your 4 speaker cables. You got your 4 IECs. Plus we got a nice power strip here in case you want to plug in some pedals. We got some headphones for you. We have our 4 speak-on cables. 3 of them are hooked up to our cabs, hence one more extra here. Then we have our guitar cables. They're all being used in the other rooms right now. Or sorry, here's my 4 guitar cables, but then here's all the other microphone cables, all being used. So that is this room's input and output. Now we have our famous pedal collection. I love pedals. I have a lot of them. So there's a lot to talk about here. So I guess let's just start from the left side. The left side starts with all the power supplies for all these pedals are down here. So we have a bunch of 1 spots and a bunch of those things. So you just reach in there, grab the power supply, and you can get going. You got a bunch of little cables so that you can just start put it together and start building your board and start building the pedals that you're really excited about. So let's just start down here. I have a talk box. This is my old talk box. Very, very rarely used, but I have it and I have used it. We did use it on a solo for a Story So Far record, but yep, there's the cable right here for it, the mouthpiece, and here's the talk box, and the power supply is in there. So there you go. We got a Vox wah pedal. I have 2 crybabies in the other room on the pedal board, as you saw. We also have a Vox down here, an expression pedal in case you ever need an expression. Then we have 4 tuners in case anyone needs a pedal tuner. We got 2 polytunes and a couple tuners down here. Then the rest of the shelf down here, we have just our amp switchers that we don't ever need to use. So here's our amp control switchers. And then lastly down there is our Dan Electro Fab Tone pedals that are the cheap, fun collectors. Don't look past them and think that they're not cool, because they're actually pretty cool pedals, especially that echo. The echo sounds really cool. So that's the bottom row. Then when we get to this next row here, I got my Countryman direct boxes. I got 2 of them. These are my oldest direct boxes here, so ready to go. And then I have these cool art DTIs. These basically like can convert any signal to any signal. So it's it'll make any cable whatever you need. Very cool, very handy to have around. Next I have a stereo radio DI in case I have like some keyboards or pianos or laptops or anything like that. I have my custom talkback that I used to use all the time to talk with bands and be like, hey, what's up? What's up? So and then I have a little custom splitter here. Then after that, we have my bass effects, dark glass, kind of my go-to sound still. I used to, first it was this Sans amp, and then I upgraded to this guy, but this guy didn't replace this. It just was another one with it. So I use both of these on all basses. This is really funny. Like, you know, there's like 4 different versions of the microtubes, but I think that this original one is the best sounding one. And then you get to, you know, there's like several different versions of this Sans amp, but I'm pretty positive that this one is the best sounding one. In fact, I know because I've tried them all. So yeah, I find that the old original ones are more so the cool ones. You got your classic bass overdrive. This is really aggressive, very cool for like that. I used to use it for like botch type of sounds and shit like that. This is oddly one of my favorite bass distortion pedals. Shout out to my buddy Justin Kastner. He's the only other guy that I know that knows this pedal fucking rocks. It's just got a really cool morph tone or knob on here, which is like morphing between the different distortion types. So you can like get a really modern or unique new one. This is just a really cool distortion. I love this pedal. Then I got the old bass equalizer, in case you ever, need to equalize that bass, ready to go. Then we get on to our more unique effects. This is actually a pretty fun one here. This is the Lexicon Hardwire. It's actually made by Digitech, but it was a partnership with Lexicon. So these are Lexicon hardware reverb sounds inside of this pedal. It actually fucking rocks. Allegedly, the reverse one on here is the one that Kevin Shields from My Bloody Valentine was using. So it's like that sound in a fucking pedal. This is actually a really cool pedal. I made some IRs of this and I use that for like drum reverb and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much there. This pedal is like straight up my favorite delay pedal of all time, the Gaiatone MD3. This shit is all over like Heavy Heavy Lola records. This is how I got like my cheap Space Echo, like those type of sounds where you fucking fuck with the delay time. This is a really, really, really good delay pedal. It's a little noisy, unfortunately, so I don't use it as much anymore, but this pedal just fucking rocks. And it's like a digital delay in terms of it's like the exact same fucking sound repeated. It's like cha 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 as opposed to like cha. So it's just really fucking cool. Then I got another digital delay here. This one's from Digitech. It's pretty cool. Nothing's really standing out about this except that just is a different vibe of a delay. It's got some tape, it's got some slapback. Then this pedal, one of the most mandatory pedals that you have, a freeze pedal. It's funny, I bought this pedal after the ninth time of saying, Jesus Christ, I need a freeze pedal. I need a freeze pedal in this moment. And then I bought one and I haven't really used it ever since I got it. But this is such a cool effect. And thankfully, every time I've needed one, someone has had it and it hasn't had to be me to use it. So yeah, anyways, really cool tone, really cool vibe. This is a pedal that was recommended to me by my amp guy. He came and brought it to me. My amp guy, Randall, shout out to Randall, he rocks. But this is just this really fucking cool reverse delay. Very unique. The knobs are just odd. Dan Electro stuff is just unique in general. But it's a really fucking cool effect. It sounds really good, and I haven't really heard a delay that does this sound before. So yeah, that is that one. Then let's see, we got more over here. So we got our flanger here, classic Boss flange, ready to go. And then I have this other flanger. This one's my favorite one. It looks pretty fucking cool because this was my flanger that I used to take out on tour with me. I used to play in a band. I used to play on tour, Anyways, this is a Digitech flanger. Super fucking cool. Then this one right here is this really cool chorus flanger from Ibanez. It has this whacked mode where if you set it to that, that is how you get the guitar sound on Limp Bizkit's My Way, okay? That's how you get that intro sound. So that sound right here, that's the pedal. My Way or the Highway. Boom, right here in this pedal, no big deal. Then I've got my MXR micro chorus. I love MXR pedals, especially because they're all just one fucking knob. It's really cool, but the only issue is they don't have blend knobs on them, so that's why I added the blend knobs that you saw on my pedal board earlier, and I can control them with these. But anyways, cool pedal, very simple pedal. Then the classic Phase 90. I got this when I was a kid and was real in love with Incubus and was like, man, that's the phaser fucking sound that I really want. Really good phaser sound. But then there's a little bit of a different phaser sound for some of the other Incubus stuff and some of the other Westmoreland stuff. That's where the super phaser comes into play. This is a very unique phase. It sounds much different than any other phasers that I've ever worked with before. Cool phaser, and it's green. So boom. Then we've got our super octave. So you can get those 311 guitar tones, you know what I'm saying, dude? Then this pedal is one of my favorite unique pedals ever, the Synthwa. This is the secret to lots of fucking weird heavy Lolo sounds. It's this pedal. The bass player Andrew just fucking loves this pedal and always gets weird with it. Really cool pedal. I have never gotten a usable sound out of this personally, but I have recorded dozens of sounds that Andrew has gotten out of this for heavy Lolo stuff. So boom. Then probably the worst pedal in my collection, the Bosch Tremolo, the TR2 Tremolo. It's like the most popular tremolo. This tremolo sucks. You know why tremolos suck? Because of their tempos. You can't fucking sync their tempos, and they're so inconsistent. So I've never gotten a tremolo to like be awesome in my life, but hey, I have this one. So there it is. Then the other cool pedal, this, I wish I knew about this pedal earlier on in my life. I learned about this pedal. I learned that allegedly Garth Richardson really used to like this on guitars and bass, and it's a fucking cool pedal. It's a really good compressor, but it also has this cool tone knob, so you can kind of just like, it's like almost like a tilt basically, so you can just like figure out your fucking tone with this. So this, allegedly you just use this all over guitar and bass all the time, and this thing, it just sounds really fucking good. I have a different compression pedal on my pedal board, but this is one that like sometimes I wish this was on that board. This pedal is pretty fucking cool. So now we go up to the next row, which are all basically boosts. So if we start from the back here, I have the infamous Sun Life pedal. This is the first edition. This is the one that everyone was selling for like $3,000 before they released the other reissues of this one. But yeah, I got one, and here it is, and it rocks, and it's pretty fucking cool. Use this on some weird shit. I really like its like octave thing. I don't really like its distortion most, but its like octave vibe is cool. Then I've got an Angry Troll. This is a pedal I got because Eric Valentine talked about it one time, and I wanted to try it. It's pretty cool. It's kind of a weird gain. I don't know if I'd ever successfully use this for anything, but it's worked in some stuff in the past, but it's unique. And it's also just a cool design, but I guess you use this on some Taking Back Sunday stuff. But yeah, it's just a pretty cool gain. It's got this cool like punch, just like how much more punch you want, man. Yeah, pretty tight. Then, you know, you got your classic MXR Dynacomp. This thing is also a really fucking good pedal. Both of these are really fucking cool. Totally different vibe, even though they're both compression. Just really, both really good pedals. I really like them. Super Overdrive. This is a new pedal for me. This is actually like the newest pedal that I own in here. I just realized one day I've never owned a Super Overdrive. Why don't I have one? So I got one, and I've used it a couple times since, but you know, it's just a legendary distortion. Why don't I have a Super Overdrive? So I got one. Then I have a Metal Box or Metal Zone. This was modded by my homie Chad from Chatterbox. I think he did like the Diesel mod is what they call it on this, but it just makes this thing sound way fucking better. It's just really fucking good. I really like this pedal, and now it's got a cool blue LED in it, and it's just fucking badass. Then, you know, if you were like me and anyone else who saw the Reverb video with Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins when this pedal came out, then you bought this pedal because, wow, that guitar tone in that story is pretty fucking tight. This pedal's not that fucking cool. That story in that video is way fucking cooler than that pedal is, but hey, whatever. It's pretty tight. Why not? I have it. It rocks. Put it in front of my Marshall. It's pretty fucking cool. Yeah, it's there. No big deal. This pedal is actually like a really cool sleeper. This is a Keeley Red Dirt Overdrive. Apparently this is like all of his like Tube Screamer clones like put into one. Very, very, very smooth, good sounding Tube Screamer. I used to use this one a lot more before I got the Klon. Once I got the Klon, I didn't have room for this on the board anymore. But this is a good pedal. I really like this pedal. Here's a Big Muff. This was given me by my amp guy. He modded it, and it's like one of these like unique like versions of the Big Muff. Pretty fucking cool pedal. Everyone knows what a Big Muff is. Boom. This is a cool one. This was given to me by Kurt Ballou. This is an Ape Eye. Cool play and name. Play off of a API op amp, which is what's inside of here. He was building these, and he was asking anyone if they had any op amps. So I had a bunch, so I sent him some. So he sent me a pedal for free. And yeah, pretty fucking cool. Nice little fucking op amp overdrive, a very unique thing that doesn't exist that I haven't seen before. So that's cool. And that is sitting next to a pedal that is the Fuck Trump pedal. Cool little unique sticker that my friend who gave me that impeach sticker. Apparently he really hated Trump at the time. But yeah, he gave me this and I thought it looked great. So I put it on this pedal. And this pedal is the Kurt Ballou Brutalist. This is the one that's made out of his PCB business card. And this thing sounds great. I use this on like some 100th and some Spirit World. This is a fucking cool pedal. And Kurt Ballou's just a cool guy in general too. Cheers to Kurt and Converge, and yeah. Then next in here we got the RC booster. Amazing gain. Also, it's got a cool like treble and bass. I used to use this one a fuck ton. This was like one of my favorite pedals. It's just a very like standard gain. It just sounds good. Great pedal. Why not have it? Next is a rat pedal. This is one of the like old original tight ones. This thing is fucking heavy. I wish you could feel this. It's a really heavy one. One of the original ones. This one sounds fucking awesome. Unmodded, totally original, totally cool. Really fucking cool. Like you can tell, like as like all the eventual rats like kept being made, they like started getting weirder and like with the LED added and all that kind of shit, lighter and whatever. You all know the rat history, but this one's one of the cool original ones and it's fucking sounds amazing. Next is one of my first pedals I ever bought. This is Ibanez Distortion. This is like that chorus flanger one over here. These are the cool tone locks, so you can choose your knob and then you can push it in and lock the tone into place. Pretty fucking cool design. This was like my first distortion. They had a Tube Screamer one that I didn't get, but this was my first distortion that I like really fucked with. So yeah, I still have it. Don't really use this pedal, but it exists. Next in here is the Comp Torsion. This is from Tech 21, same company that makes the Sans amp. This was a trick that Rich Costy's old assistant, this guy Ross Peterson, told me about. He said to get this and to route like a microphone between kick and snare to this thing because this is the fucking bomb. And it fucking rocks. It's got a really good compression. It's just a really cool thing. Allegedly, they used to run like a 57 in between kick and snare into this, into like an amp and mic it. And that was like the other like snare sound that they would get. So I've tried things like that before. It's pretty cool. This pedal rocks. It's going to be inside of one of my plugins here pretty soon. It's fucking really, really cool, unique device. Next is the Double Rock. I love the Box of Rock. That's why it's on my board in there. So I got this one, the Double Rock, because it's two of them in one. I found that I like the regular Box and Rock a little bit better than this one. But this pedal is cool, and I used to use this one a lot. So yeah, now it just lives in here. Next, you got a Fuzz Factory. Wow, one of the coolest like ZVEX pedals ever. How many fucking unique tones are out of this thing? This thing is really hard to make sound good, but when you make it sound good, it just sounds fucking perfect. I've used this mostly for a lot of like oscillator noise tricks where I could be like, woo! Yeah, it's cool though. Fuzz Factory, you gotta have it. Next is a red DIY pedal that I made. This is a Cap and Crunch tone is what it is. It's kind of like a modified tube screamer. It's like an LED tube screamer is what it is doing. It's like, it's not using standard like silicon diodes or whatever. It's using LEDs as its clipping circuit. It's a very cool sounding pedal. Next is the Focus pedal. This is like was made popular by our friend Nolly because he liked to use this, and this company, VFE, is very cool. They actually don't make pedals anymore, sadly, but this is just a gorgeous pedal. It's basically just like, it's like a filter. Filters out some low end, filters out some top end. It's like a little like guitar cleanup or boost type of thing. It's really cool. But that type of design was put into this guy, which is the Ice Scream. And this pedal is really cool. It's got a bunch of dip switches inside where you can change its clipping mode. It apparently is like every fucking type of tube screamer inside of it, and you can make it whichever one you want it to be. So yeah, this pedal rocks. This was like the main tube screamer that I used to use for a while, but I had switched over to the OCD in there. So yeah, this thing, I still pull it out sometimes. Really fucking cool pedal. Then, you know, the original fucking, the old Maxon OD 808 with the Ninja Turtle on the back. No big deal, guys. And the green knobs, no big deal. Yeah, you know, got this after, you know, I read from Adam D from Killswitch that he used this in front of a 5150 for a Killswitch ditch. So I got it. I did that whole phase for a minute. Pretty cool. I don't really like tube screamers because they cut out a lot of low end. So because of that, I looked into modding it, and then that's when I was like, well, I should make my own mods. So I made this one, and it's a really cool green, like flake glitter one, and it's tight. This one has a mod where it actually gives you your low end back, but the problem is that it gets a little too thick. So I was using this for a while, but then I started using it as with a blend, and that kind of took me down the blend rabbit hole with some overdrives. But this is a really fucking good sounding overdrive. Also, it has the different clipping modes, so I can switch between if it's going to be an LED or a diode, or if it's going to be the like TL703 chip or whatever that's inside of it. So yeah, this is a really fucking good tube screamer. Next is this tube screamer here. This is this old Ibanez one. It's really funny. I was working on a Spirit World album, and I had this sit on one of the amps, And Spirit World guy was just like, what the fuck are you doing with this piece of shit? And I was like, well, my amp guy gave it to me to try out. So we put it in, and it, Jesus Christ, this thing fucking rocks. This is such a fucking good tube screamer. It's incredible how good this thing sounds. Granted, he modded the shit out of it, and he could do it because it's like a really simple like built-in circuit inside here, but it's this really shitty old fucking Ibanez case, and it just sounds great. Really shitty looking tube screamer, but it fucking rocks. Next is a pedal from this dude Chatterbox. It's the Loud Louder. Allegedly, the Loud Louder is basically just a box of rock, but it's reversed, or I guess it's like just the exact same thing as a box of rock. So I made a mod mine and put a fucking extra knob on it so I could tweak it a little bit more. Had a big love-hate phase with this for a minute. Really loved it, turned a lot of people onto it, and then I got like kind of tired of its sound. Then I guess he did the exact same thing with the old Ironsides pedal, where it was like the same circuit but backwards, and so he made me this cool one with all these panda stickers on here. Very cute. So yeah, I was using these pedals for a while, had a little phase with them, but yeah, haven't used them too much recently. Then he also made me this cool fuzz. This is actually probably like the best sounding fuzz I have in here. It's just like some like shitty simple like circuit that he made, and it fucking rocks. So yeah, there that is. Then gets to my favorite pedal in the fucking studio, the fucking plasma pedal. Jesus, this pedal rocks. Lights up with its plasma thing, has just like, this is the coolest sounding distortion I've ever heard. This is like the most unique, weird, and cool sounding distortion. This pedal fucking rocks. I got this for the first Spirit World album to fuck with it, and they gifted it to me and left it here. So it is mine. I have a plasma pedal. It fucking rocks. And so, yeah, there's that. Those are all my pedals. The last thing here to talk about are these amazing reamp boxes here. These are boxes that I made. I made 4 of them. And I got these designs from my best friend, Eric Valentine. He sent them to me because this is the same design that is in his now GB tracker. But he sent it to me a really long time ago because it's got a custom transformer that actually has the correct impedance step down. So this is basically the GB satellite in 4 different boxes in theory. So these are what I use for my reamps here. So I have 2 in this room and I have 2 in that room, and I could just pick these up at any time and reamp from any room that I want. So that is my pedal collection. That is the ISOBooth. And let's get up and let's move into the other rooms. Okay, so now we are entering the East control room here at the Panda Studios. Here it is, very spacious, very gorgeous control room. I guess let's talk about the design. It's the same thing as the live room in terms of there is a live wall. So a lot of people are always confused that there's no treatment on this side of the wall here. But that's the live wall so that the room still sounds natural. So we have the Ultra Touch in the walls here with the fabric on top, which is the recycled blue jeans. So this is a very balanced and awesome sounding room. We have our big cloud here. We did not install a ceiling into this room when we came into the studio. We just used it as is, so it has the 14-foot tall ceiling in this room here. So the it is just a really nice natural sounding low end in here. It isn't pinched or too boxy or boomy. So yeah, then let's see, we could talk about these guitars that we have in this room here. I guess we'll start with this black Ibanez. This is like one of my first guitars that like my family bought me when I needed to get an acoustic. I just really liked it because of the short scale. It's just a really beautiful guitar, and it just plays really well. Like I learned how to play like pretty much all guitar on that guitar, so it's a very sentimental guy for me. Then the next one here, this is this. I don't even know how we got this guitar. I think someone left it here a long time ago. It's ours now. Anyways, this is kind of like a standard acoustic. Whenever we do anything, we just pull out that, and then we usually layer it with this. So we have like the nice tinier like sounding one, and then the cool acoustic. And then this right here is a funny story. This is a 12-string guitar that my dad bought for his girlfriend in college. And then decades later, being a couple years ago, she contacted me because she lived in the area and asked me if I wanted this guitar that my dad had bought for her. So Technically, my dad bought me this guitar when I didn't even exist in the world, so pretty unique. It's really nice to have a 12-string acoustic guitar in here to be able to mess with. Really cool for layering. It's a bitch to fucking tune, but it's really phenomenal. So yeah, that's these acoustic guitars here. This is one of the newer additions to the studio. I got this Stingray Sterling bass. This is like a Ernie Ball Stingray, but the really cheap one. I think I only paid $300 for this bass. I just realized eventually like we needed that Stingray sound. We were kind of missing that sound. So we got it. And Jesus, this bass sounds incredible. I love this bass. If and when Evertune ever makes a bridge for a bass, I will definitely put it on this bass here. So yeah, this bass rocks. Then we have a couple other basses here. This is my first bass that I bought. I bought this for $300 on eBay. This is a Roger Waters signature. It's his bass. Unique feature is it came with the Duncans, and then it came with the brass nut, which is a pretty cool feature. And then I put a badass bridge on it, and this bass sounds amazing. I use this for like my early like basement and state champs records. This is all this bass. This bass rocks. Then this is another newer one. This is kind of like a more modern sounding P bass. It's got the whole P and J setup, which I never use the jazz one. I just use the P bass one all the time. But it sounds really good. I like it. It's just more like slanky and a little bit more modern sounding. But yeah, fun bass, good bass. So those are our three main basses. And then we have this bass 6, which is awesome. God, I did so many modifications on this thing. So this is a Squire bass 6. First of all, I put a brass nut in here, and then we upgraded the pickups inside, so it's different pickups. And then we got the mastery bridge, and we got the stop tail piece instead of the floating trem, because I want this to be like just a cool bass. And yeah, pretty awesome. Sounds great, feels great, and you got to get the right strings on this, because getting the gauge correct and the length of the gauge and everything is really hard. And the ones that, like the packs that come for these, they're not the right gauges for the tuning. So it's a lot of trial and error finding and like ordering the right strings for this. So yeah, it rocks though. I love it for like overdubs and choruses and just like big like moments where I'm just like, you know, what would be really tight is if we played that lead on a bass 6 an octave lower than what it is right now. It's got that cure thing that happens. This is it's a fun one to have in the arsenal to pull out. So that's the basses and acoustics in this room. Then we have all of our synths here. So yeah, I love pop music. I love synths. So I made sure I had a bunch of my favorite synths from my favorite records so that I could get those sounds in my productions here. So let's go through some of those. The first synth that I ever bought is this realistic synthesizer, which is actually like a Moog. It's basically like a very cheap mini Moog, and it rocks. It's like the basis of synthesis. And so you can learn like all your basic routing and stuff on all this device here. So this one rocks. Then I have the Nord Rack 2, which is just a phenomenal sounding synthesizer. I love this thing. Like this is on a bunch of like this dude, the AG Cook, that I just absolutely love. Like I can hear all these sounds on there a lot of times. It just is a really good synth. I love it. Then the next one here is the Novation Bass Station, and this is the Aphex Twin model. And Aphex Twin is just like one of my idols. I absolutely love Aphex Twin. So to be able to have that type of vibe in this thing is pretty cool. This is like a nice randomizer machine. This is really nice for like leads and pads and like anything that you like really want to poke. This is fun for bass. I use this one a lot for bass. And I also have like this MIDI modded so that I can like route MIDI to this and like print like bass tracks and, you know, blend those in with like actual like electric bass and stuff. So pretty tight. Then we have the Juno 106. This thing is a beautiful device. I've had to get this like repaired like twice now. This is like a temperamental guy, but it's in pretty good shape now. I love this thing. It's like one of my favorite sounding synths like all my favorite sounding productions. Like when I really like look it up, it's just like, wow, it's all just pretty much Juno 106. So that's like my starting point of like most of my sounds, pad stuff that we do. Like I just love this synth, it's amazing. Then we have the Electron. This is the Cycles. This is like an FM synth. It's like a beat station where you can do like a bunch of like hi-hats and kicks and snares, and I really love this device. I love it for like synth, like leads and a lot of like 808s. This is just a really awesome device. Then we got the DX7. This is like, you know, kind of nostalgic piece. A lot of the 80s and early 90s stuff that I was really into is like these sounds. And then we have a Korg Triton, which is really tight. Some really sick piano sounds on there, a lot of like unique stabs. You can kind of do that New Jack Swing thing, that Janet Jackson thing, pretty tight. So yeah, like most of the time when I'm like working on a record, I'll at least like try to get 2 or 3 days set up in this room so that I'm just like throwing a bunch of synths on things and like throwing a bunch of MIDI and printing a bunch of stuff and experimenting with things. So yeah, that is my synth station there. I guess we should pan over to the other remaining ones here, which is the Hammond organ. This thing fucking rocks. Also, it has the Taurus pedals so that you can use it for low octave stuff. Really fucking amazing device. It has a direct out, so that's really handy. I use this all the fucking time. Really, really fun piece to have. This is just like a MIDI controller like that we use that has weighted keys. It feels really nice. One of your shitty little keyboards that you can have around to like work on ideas and quickly like, you know, calculate what your melodies are for vocals, that type of stuff. So that's why this is like sitting around and hanging out. Yeah, then that brings us over to our desk here. This is the main rig that we have for the room. This is a Avid carbon interface. So we are rocking 16 ins and 16 outs right here to this patch bay. So everything is patched in right here. The Carbon is also just like a beautiful device in terms of that it has its own monitoring and all of its own talkback. So everything that we need to get in and out of this computer and just have a really easy turnkey solution is done with the Carbon. We are using Yamaha NS10s, my favorite, obviously. I have a PreSonus subwoofer in here to get a little bit of low end as well. So I'm just using the crown amplifier on the bottom there for this NS10s to be powered. Using sonar works in this room. Very awesome scenario, just sounds great. So yeah, so let's talk about the patch bay and then we'll get on to the rest of the desk here. But patch bay, we have 2 TRS patch bays up here. And so we have our 16 outs of the Carbon interface and our 16 line ins. So we could patch in and out, but these are obviously all normaled, so everything's just ready to go. We have our Avalon DI right here, which we like to use for a lot of DIs so that we can have the exact same signal flow in both rooms. So I have that set up here so I can patch that in. We have our separate headphone outs, which are coming out there, so you can run 4 different headphone mixes, which is really cool, and I can patch that into any of the rooms and give every artist their own headphone mix, so then that's great. We have all of our synthesizers, all there are returning right here. So if I run any MIDI from the computer, they all go to the synths, and I could basically just have that going. I could re-amp MIDI through the synths, and I could just patch all these in simultaneously or just choose which ones I want. So it's really cool because those synths have their own amplifier setup so that if you just play them, they're just like powered into the room and you can just hear them because there's speakers on them, but they're also patched right here. So we could patch them and just immediately start recording them. So that's all hooked up right here. That's our main TRS patch. It's pretty simple. Then underneath that, like I said, we have our Avalon DI. This is just so we make sure that our DIs are the same in each room so we can trade off recording between the 2 rooms. Then I got an extra power station up here because if you're going to bring an amp or something like that and you want to, or like an external piece of gear or anything, you're going to want some good power. So here's the power right there. Now we have our XLR tie lines from the rooms. So top row, this is the 16 channels that go to our East live room. The second row, those are the 16 channels that go to the isolation booth. And then this third row over here, these are actually the preamplifier inputs. So that way you can patch from which room into whatever preamp you want. So currently this is all hardwired to record 1 through 15 in the East room, and then now it's number 16 is going through the ISOBooth. So if I switch that back, now 16 from the East room is connected into number 16 on the preamp here, and we have a complete circuit, and everything is totally a turnkey solution ready to go. Just open Pro Tools, choose your input, change your microphone preamp level, and you have audio. So there is that. We also have 4 extra XLRs that go into that room and 4 extra XLRs that go into the ISOBooth. That's so we can send like headphone mixes or anything, you know, like audio, line level signal in between the 2 rooms, anything that we want. Then we have 4 speak-on inputs right here, and 2 of them go to the East room and 2 of them go to the ISOBooth. So you could run 2 guitar heads into 2 cabs into that room and or 2 into the ISOBooth. So you can just set up some guitar heads right here and start working. So one of our freelance engineers, Charles Toshio, he does a bunch of work out of here. He's recorded bands like Scal and Tsunami here. And so he just brings all his amps and all his rigs, and it's just a very plug and play turnkey solution for him to just walk in, turn on the rig, and get started making records. So let's talk about the desk setup real quick. So we have running an iMac. These carbons are going straight into the iMac via Ethernet. This is an old 96 IO. I used to use that interface in this room, but then we upgraded the carbon, so I still have it sitting here as a backup in case we ever needed it. So yeah, and then we are using 2 artist mix controllers so that you can have access to 16 faders to be mixing and doing whatever you want in here. I don't really mix in this room. I do a lot of like prep work and a lot of like recording, but if I wanted to mix, like I have all my faders here, but it's nice to like set up and do all my leveling. And then we have a MIDI controller here. I have this in basically every single room. You'll notice that this is like a theme, but basically I can set that to the key of the song and just have all my MIDI commands ready to go. And or I can just like change it and route it quickly for some drums so that I can basically just like make my own little MIDI control commands that say just kicks, just snare, just toms, and just like program that out through there. So yeah, that's the main tools on this desk. Also, we can't forget that we have our oblique strategies. We have them in basically every room here, but very important piece of working. In fact, let's pull in right now, see what we should do. It says, who should be doing this job and how would they do it? Well, I think it would be Justin Bieber, and he would be showing off his crib, acting like a badass, because he is a badass. So let's move on to the other part of this room. Then, you know what I'm saying, Doug? Now, before we do it, we have a couple skateboards we should talk about. Story Safari skateboards, awesome. Total Unicorn skateboard and state champs. The Total Unicorn one has a huge, giant phallus as a horn from the unicorn there that is coming a bunch of colored semen. Pretty awesome. So yeah, we went on tour with this band Heavy Low that I used to play with. We went on tour with Total Unicorn, so they gave me that one. So I love that one. It always makes me think of them. Great guys. Cheers to Total Unicorn and all the Australian homies. Let's see what else we got over here. We've got our 2 PA speakers so that if anyone wants to jam or wants to like throw any audio into the room or reamp audio or whatever, ready to go. We have 2 combos here. This is an old practice combo that I really like. Sounds like really like shitty in a cool way, but it's awesome. This is one that a friend gave to me a while ago. This is like actually like kind of like some weird like slept on sought after studio amp. It's really good. My homie John Whitcore from Avid, he also has one too, and we were just talking about that. But yeah, it's just a really like cool sounding amp. It's just really clean and really nice. It's like another like JC120 type of vibe. So yeah, that's that. Then we have a little bookshelf over here with a bunch of cool audiobooks that I've collected over the years. So there's a lot of really cool reading material. So if anyone actually took the time to just like walk over here and pull a book or 2, you'd find some pretty cool stuff. I mean, like Gene Simmons's autobiography, come on, who doesn't want to read that? You know what I'm saying? That's pretty funny. Yeah, there's some cool stuff in here. But yeah, this is like all my, like a bunch of my school books and stuff like that, that are just all about audio and just a bunch of different like art things. Yeah, I like to pull things out like, this nice American guitar book, this nice book all about the history of orange amplifiers, and then, a nice little book about Jackson Pollock. Why not, Sometimes you just need some inspiration. You just need to hang out and read some stuff. So try to have a few little inspirational things around here that have inspired me through the years for other people to reference sometimes. Then I have an omnichord up here. Omnichords are awesome. And it was made pretty famous recently by that dude from the Gorillaz showing everyone that he used one of those beats from it. But yeah, omnichords rock. Especially, it's just cool, like, once you learn about them, you can just hear them everywhere. You just are like, that's an omnichord, that's an omnichord. Oh, wow, I can totally hear it, that's an omnichord. So, yeah, it's funny. Obviously, that Gorillaz song is an omnichord. Duh, like, it makes so much sense. Yeah, then I got this really cool keytar here. I went to my wife's grandma's house and found this in a shed there. Apparently, it was, like, one of her toys as a child. This thing fucking rocks, and it looks fucking tight. What's up? One of these like vintage synth Instagrams posted about this one time, and it was a really cool ad. But yeah, this thing is really cool, and it also has a audio out, so you can just patch right out of it, no issue. You can even run MIDI into it and control some MIDI. Yeah, it's pretty tight. Then, I got our Banksy piece here of the old Panda. I got some records that I did up there. These are some nice like Billboard things that say that they hit Billboard chart. Pretty cool. Then up there I got a Panda that was painted and put on my old Mesa Boogie cabinet, the one that I mentioned earlier that didn't sound as good as the orange, so that's why I sold it. But I kept it around for a long time because I had a really cool Panda on it. It looked awesome. But then I sold it to the dude from the Story So Far, and then he sold it back to me, and then I sold it again, but I got a new cab for it, or a new thing. So anyways, there it is, hanging up forever to be immortalized and remembered. How we just talked about that band Total Unicorn. Here's the tour poster from the Heavy Lolo tour that I did in Australia. This was a very, very, very awesome tour. We had a great time. Met a lot of cool people. Shout out to all the Australian homies. No big deal. Then, yeah, the other cool thing about this control room is that it has a bathroom in it. So we have 2 bathrooms in the studio. So yeah, we got some cool art in here. We got some pandas, and then we also have a really cool article from Steve Albini hanging up that has some reading material, which tells people why and how to finish their record and just make it great. And then there's another piece behind this door here that is a photo of a Nike boot that my homie took, and it is awesome. And that's my homie Jacob Fouts. He's a great guy. And yeah, so unfortunately it doesn't get much love because it's behind the door, but it's a beautiful piece and it's worth having a discussion about, especially because I'm a very big fan of Nikes. Pan down to the shoes, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm wearing the cool shoes. So yeah, anyways, that kind of completes everything in the East room. Oh, I guess the last thing to talk about is, the constant theme of every room. I've got 4 cables to plug from the patch bay into your headphones here so that we can route perfectly into any room to any of our 4 headphones. So there they are. Then I have my 4 headphone cables so that if anyone is going to plug in their headphones to any of the walls, you would plug it into one of these cables. Again, 4 because there's 4 headphone connectors. I have 4 IECs, so if anyone brings any power or any device that needs to be powered, there they are, the 4 IECs. Got 2 headphones in here, 2 in a couple other rooms we can borrow them, that's what it makes 4. Then we have our 4 TS cables so that you have 4 guitar cables ready to go. And then we only have our 2 there's 4 actually in here, I forgot. Well, 2 because you'd want to go from into a head into here and then into the cab. So we got 4 total speak on a TS. We have microphone cables. I got 16 in this room, but almost all of them are set up on the drum set in there, which you will see. Then we got some patch cables, a paintbrush. I love this because this is how you dust off your synthesizers, like I talked about earlier, so you can just So there you go, you know. Anyways, you know, if you want to dust it off, use a paintbrush. So that's how you can get in all those nice nooks and crannies and be very nice to your stuff there. Get the softest bristles you can. So then, yeah, have some cables for some little patches if you wanted to do, and then some splitters so you can split a couple audio cables if you need to. And then we got a little USB devices here, you know, so that you can plug in any of these synths and stuff into the computer if you needed to, and everything you need to rock this room hard. So that kind of completes this. Oh, I guess also, you know, I didn't state the obvious. We got this really cool panda hanging up here. My homie Lurk made this. This is one of these like carpets, and it's just a gorgeous thing. And you know, this room never felt complete until we hung it up, and looks great. So thanks to him for that. That was very nice of him. Let's move on to our next room, the fun room. This is the East Live Room. So here we are in the East Live Room. This is a very, very fun room. Again, it's a Jeff Hedbeck design. Same theme as the other rooms. We have one live room wall in here, and we got one dead wall. So this is our live wall over here. We have just diffusion over here, no absorption. So we got a lot of bounce over here and a nice natural reflection, but no weird flutter, nothing, you know, too echoey or boxy sounding. Huge, awesome cloud. This was a bitch to install, but Jesus, it just looks gorgeous. Big 8-foot by 8-foot cloud that we built. So yeah, there that is. Then we have our dead side, which is where we set up our drums over here. So this is the more controlled portion of the room. It is just a very awesome sounding drum room. I remember when we were building it, I was thinking in my mind, this would be the room that would sound like Wasting Light's drums. I want it to be like that Dave Grohl kind of garage thing, like a little bit more punk rock, a little bit more like uncontrolled. Like I want it to look nice and have like a good studio vibe, but I want it to also sound like a room and like a punk rock garage room. So it's cool that Charles Toshio does a lot of his punk stuff in here because it sounds really good and lends himself to work really well on that style of music. So here we are. We can talk about the drums and what we have set up here. Before we talk about this one, let's talk about this drum set, because this is my first drum set I ever purchased in my life. This was a very big, expensive purchase for me at the time. I was living in Oakland, working out of my spot, starting to record bands, and was getting really tired of having drummers that just had really shitty drums showing up. And I was like, you know what? I want to buy a drum set. So I decided to spend $1,200 on this. And I got this drum set and like a snare and some cymbals and a couple things. And so this was my drum set. And I did basically 99.9% of my records on this drum set for maybe almost 10 years of my life. This drum set sounds phenomenal. This is a Pacific drum set. It's Pacific MX kit. This is a 22-inch kick drum. This is a 14-inch floor tom. This is a 12-inch rack tom and a 10-inch rack tom. So over time, as we started to like record this kit more, a couple of like issues with it presented itself. Number one, this didn't have tom mounts or legs for it to be a floor tom properly. You had to use this weird rack and hang it. So people didn't like doing that because they are really lazy and don't know really how to set that up. So they used a different drum set that we had that had a floor tom legs instead of these toms, but people still liked this kick drum a lot. Then the second issue that we had with this drum set was that the tom sizes aren't the ideal ones. People think that a 14-inch is kind of like a wimpy floor tom sound, and it just was kind of limited in how low and thunderous you could get a tom to sound out of that range of a size, out of 10-inch and out of a 14-inch. So this kit really lends itself to a lot more faster punk stuff. And like as I started branching into other sounds, I started noticing that I needed to get a different kit. So that's why I got that PDP kit. But there was one drum kit that I recorded in my life that like is the thing that I want to get in my life and have because it's just like one of the best sounding kits I've ever recorded. But that was a Ludwig steel drum set. So one day we were driving down the street from my house and my wife said, "Stop the car. there's a drum set for sale at a garage sale. You should check it out. And so I drove back, and it was this drum set there. And this looks like it's a Ludwig steel drum set, but it's not. It's a steel, it's a chrome thing that's over actual maple kit. So it's just a maple drum kit. But it's a 22-inch. This is a 13. There's a 12 over there in the corner. And this is a 16-inch 4-tom. And I got this kit for $100. And this kit fucking rocks. Its kick drum sounds phenomenal. Its tom sizes are really good. It's just a really, really, really good kick drum. And this is like all of the punk guys that I've ever worked with are like really jealous that this is my drum kit and that I got it for $100 because it fucking rocks. And yeah, so there's that, like I said, there's that extra 12-inch tom, but most people like the 13. But yeah, so Charles uses this one a lot. I use this drum kit pretty often too. It just sounds really great in this room. And yeah, so I also really like the black dot heads on this style of kit. It's not quite the coded like overtones and speed and like slowness of the transient. And this is like a little bit quicker, but it's still got a little bit of overtoned vibe, but not, you know, doesn't sound too like modern. So yeah, then we have on this right here, I have the infamous Liquid Death Snare. Some of you may know us because we recorded 25 different tunings of this snare and put it into a plugin for free. And yeah, so this is the snare that we used. It sounds great. As you know, I'm a fan of the controlled sound, like the 36-inch or the 36 strand underneath, and it just sounds great. So yeah, there's that. Cymbals, we got a 14-inch A custom. This is like a very this is like one of the most popular ones that we record hi-hat wise. Like this one just sounds great. Like it's like one of the, just as a phenomenal sounding hi-hat. Like what you're used to hearing from a hi-hat, this is like the sound. It just sounds great. Then I have the A customs set up in here right now. I got the 19-inch A custom. Then I got the 20-inch A custom. And then I got the 21-inch Sweet Ride, and this is the one that like Travis Barker or whatever uses as his extra crash. So yeah, then I have the 19-inch, I forget what this one's called, but yeah, I got this recently. It's really cool. Got this because drummer Spirit World has one, and one of my homies has one, and I was like, you know what, I should get one. I should check it out. It's pretty kind of China-ish, kind of not. But yeah, that's the cymbal setup in here right now. We can talk about the microphones. The microphones are kind of like an accumulation of leftover stuff from things I've moved on from, but I'm also like still really attached to. So I guess we can start with talking about the kick drum mic that's down here. This is the Sennheiser E602. I love that kick mic. Like one of the first times I ever played this show at the Pound. I remember with Pound in San Francisco. Shout out to those who don't know that place. That place fucking rocked. So, but anyways, my band was playing there, and they mic'd up the kick, and it just sounded so good. And I was like, "What mic is that?" And it was a 602. So I went out and bought one, and that was just my kick sound for like a decade. That was my favorite kick microphone. As you saw earlier, I used the Beta 91 and the M82, but if I'm gonna do something in this room, I don't mind just going back to my original, just like one kick mic sound. So that's why I have that set up here. Then we got a snare. Snare in this room, I got a 545 because, like I said earlier, I got the 545. So I have the second one in here, ready to go on top snare. I'm just using a standard 57 on bottom. I don't have two blues, and I don't need a second one just for that reason, but I would like to have one someday, you know. Then next I got a ATM 25 up on top because I have 4 ATM 25s in case we ever get one of those four tom drummers. But we only really have 2 toms set up pretty often, so we got 2 in this room and 2 in the other room. Then underneath there, I have just a leftover 57 sitting right between the kick and snare here, and that is like an extra cool like room mic, like a KS trick. So I like to use that in here just as my simple little mono guy that I'll smash around. Then on overheads, I'm using these KSM 44s. These mics rock. Shure is kind of one of those microphone companies that like people are quick to overlook because they just like hear about it all the time, but like you hear about it all the time for a reason. Like they're phenomenal mics. I just love that company. I really like their mics. So I've been using the 44s in here. I got 44s because I love the 32s. 32s were like one of the first mics I ever bought, and then I like went down the rabbit hole of trying all these other condensers throughout my life, and then eventually went back to a 32 and was like, damn, a KSM 32 just sounds great. It's a great mic. So I got the KSM 44s because I like changing polar patterns and doing stuff like that. So I use the 44s on overheads in this room, and then I have a pair of KSMs that I use as our rooms over here. So I used to do space pair. I have been doing that a lot less recently because I like the stereo imaging. So this, I have it just like as far away and as reflected from the drums because I just want to hear reflected sound. I don't want to hear anything from the actual drum kit itself. I don't want it pointed at it because I just want to have a unique, thick ambience. So yeah, that is our microphone setup on the drum set here. I almost forgot about the patch bays, so let's go over those real quick. So here are the 16 inputs into our East control room. So we got our 16 on top. We got our extra 4 lines on the bottom here. And so then we have our 2 speak-ons. So you got your 20 XLR inputs into that room and your 2 speak-ons ready to go. Then on the other side of this room, we've got the exact same thing almost. And this goes directly to the West control room. So yes, the West control room can record in this room and or the other live room and or the ISOBooth. It is patched to all 3 rooms here at the studio, whereas the East control room is only patched to this room in the ISOBooth. So we have our 16 XLR inputs on top. We got our 4 XLR inputs on the bottom for any extra lines. And then I showed you guys earlier, but it's the 2 lines and the 2 speak-on lines that go directly into the ISOBooth over here so that you could just plug a head right in here into the ISOBooth, and it's just a short inch-long cable run into that room over there. So yeah, that is the patch bays in this room. And now that officially concludes the East live room. So this is the main room at the Panda Studios here where I do most of my work. This would be like Sam's office, essentially. So yeah, there's a lot to go over in this room. This is a Jeff headback design treated room as well. This used to have a different sort of treatment before we built the second side, and then once we built that side, we upgraded this room and the live room, and so this is the treatment we have now. We used to have this old diffuser thing above me that actually like looked like it would have killed me. It was just like really heavy and really scary. But I assure you everything is safe. So we built this other one instead. So yeah, basically this is a grid diffuser with absorption up on top. It sounds really nice and dead and really treated right here. And that same thing is on the back of the wall here. And this is where I have all of my awesome trinkets ready to go for me to have all my tools. So we'll go over all those in a little bit. So we got the cloud above, we got the side panels, we got all the bass trapping around here. It's a very, very, very treated room, and it sounds great. So now let's pan over to here, and let's start with this wall of amps here. There's a lot to go over here, but let's start with this guy here. This is a fun board. This is the progress chart. Write your band name, project down, write your instrument, write your song, and then we play how many things can we finish today. So this is the game we play all day when we're making records, and it's nice to have a whiteboard ready to go so everyone can decorate it however they want. So here is my pedal board. This would probably be the best place to start and talk about this entire wall here. I love pedals. I have a bunch of pedals. You saw that I have a bunch of pedals in the ISOBooth. This is my pedal board, and this is a very long thought out process of getting this to a point of being a complete intuitive design that is just going to make me make awesome records all day with no issue. So let's go over what we have here. So basically, you have a true bypass looper here. This is a DIY thing where if there is nothing engaged and there is no signal going through any of these pedals, this is just guitar into this, and this goes from the input to this tone bone right here. And this tone bone is my AB box so that I have 2 outs. So just a brief tangent, to get in and out of the pedal board, you would use this patch bay right here. So we have our input here and our 2 outputs of the board. So that is how we get in and out of the board. So I currently have a reamp box set here with an output going to my input. I would patch out of those into any of the amplifiers here. So we'll go over that in a second. Let's go back to the board here. So pedal board. First thing, the signal. What are we going to do? Well, you're probably going to want to clean up the signal, gate any noise, get anything out of it before it goes into anything. So I have a gate right here that I can engage, and this is my input gate. I can set it to mute, I can make it just a mute pedal, or I can just make it a gate. That way we can just quickly mute the guitar and or clean up any line noise when it's not playing. Next is the pitch. This is going to allow you to change the pitch of your guitar, and it's very important that it is one of the first things in the stage, because you wouldn't want to change the pitch of your guitar with all the sound baked into the sound before it's pitched down. So that's why it's very front here. And I do that with the chord or the electro-harmonics pitch shifter here, the pitchfork. I use it for a lot of like octave stuff, playing around with, blend a little bit of thing in there, get a little bit of that pog type of sound going in with the pitch shifter. So that is that. The next thing I have is a wah pedal. Now, the wah pedal is all the way to the left over here. I am borrowing one from my amp dude who is letting me try out this modded one that he made. I have my own Crybaby set here. But yeah, that way, if you want to wah your sound, you'd probably want to wah it before your effects and not after your effects. So that's why it is there. Next thing in the signal is the EQ. And I accomplish EQ on this pedal board with these 2 pedals. This is a parametric EQ from Boss, and this Dean Markley little pedal that has bass, middle, treble, and some little volume boost action here. So I can EQ and fix the tone of the guitar before it hits the amp and do anything that I need to right here. Then we go to our external one. The external one is a very, very, very fun, awesome option, because what that does is that sends this pedal right here. It sends the signal to this pedal right here. This is a blender pedal. So this means that whatever you plug into this pedal, you can blend in 100% and or 50 and or whatever. So how do you plug into this pedal? Well, we pan back down here to this patch bay, and this is external one. This is into external one and out of external one. So any client can plug in their pedal board or their distortion or anything like that into my pedal board to insert into the chain before any of the effects. So that is the external one. And like I said, I can blend that. I can make that 100% or I can make that 50, whatever. So someone can put a reverb there and I can run a 50% parallel of that. Anything. Options are endless. It's awesome. Next one is the Boost/OD. This guy rocks. The Boost/OD goes to my blender pedal, which then has a loop of a Klon Centaur, a box of rock, and a OCD pedal. And that way I can run my tube screamer and or distortions in parallel. So I don't have to run completely serial. That way I can get a little bit more low end that is getting cut out of here, et cetera, et cetera. I have a bunch of options. So really love the Klon. Klon is a fantastic pedal. This is one that my amp guy gave to me. He had a couple extra ones because he ran into them. So here one is. It's amazing. Then here is a box of rock, like one of my favorite overdrives. I use it for the boost all the time, love it. And then the OCD, probably the best sounding version of the OCD. There's like all these different versions. It's very like, you know, cult following in terms of which version is which. I think I have the best sounding version. I really love mine. So yeah, those are my main overdrives. I don't really use overdrives too much because I actually get most of my tone from the amps itself, but I do like to hit them in different ways and when I'm stacking through similar tones. So I'll use these occasionally, and it's really nice to just blend them in to get a little bit more, you know, articulation or a little bit more hair or whatever I'd want out of the tone. So that is that. Then after the boost, you might want to gate and get some of that line noise that is getting raised out of your boost there. So that's why I have the gate on that afterwards. So there's a gate up in the morning, there's a gate after the boost here so that you can play with the differences of them. Then after that, I have a compressor pedal. I really like this Exotic Effect SP compressor. It's just really good, really simple. I really like the different like high, low, and mid modes that it has on it. It's just a really fantastic compressor that I just like love using for like clean tones. You can just get it right to a point of breakup and then just like really get that guitar to punch through without ever breaking up. It's a beautiful, beautiful pedal. Really like that. I use that. This is like one of my most popular pedals that I use on this board, to be honest. So after the comp is our effects. And so the effects goes to, you guessed it, a blender pedal. That way I could run my effects in parallel. And what effects would that be? Well, it's my flanger, my chorus, and my phase 90. So those are all my effects. That way I have my modulation that I could run in parallel and just blend in a little bit of phaser if I want to, or a little bit of flanger. So really like that. Then the next thing I have here is the external 2. Where do you think that goes? Pan back down here. External 2. This way, if someone has like, say, like a Strymon or like a cool delay, or if like someone like me has a thing like a space echo that is sitting right over there that needs to have an input sitting right here. So I can go from external 2 into my space echo and use my space echo on my pedal board right here. And I can blend how much of that is in here. So that is one of my reverbs and delays that I really like to use, and or someone else's reverb delay that they like to use, so they can put it in right here. Otherwise, I have a delay right here, and the delay goes to these 3 delays that I have set up here. This is a Ibanez delay echo. This is really, really, really good pedal. Sounds phenomenal. I really love just like dialing that in really quick. Then I have a digital delay, that classic Wes Borland clean digital delay tone. So I have that, and I have a tap tempo with it. So I can just set that thing and just go, what's up, and use my tap tempo. So then next I have the carbon copy, and I have that one modded so that I can actually have the tap tempo as well with that. So it's very cool. I can switch between which delays I want. I have a bunch of different vibes between that. And then next in the chain, I have a reverb pedal. And I am accomplishing with reverb with my MXR reverb. I really like this reverb. It's really simple. I really like those MXR pedals like I talked about earlier, like the one knob designs. I think they're just really cool. So I like this pedal. It's really simple. I like just switching between the modes and saying, sure, I want just a little bit of room sound and et cetera, et cetera. So if I really want to get weird, I'll use my space echo over here and use the spring reverb, but that pretty much covers my reverb duty there. So then, like I said before, all the output of this pedal goes to my tone bone. Big fan of the tone bone. I can change the polarity. I can change my ground lift here. Then I can also add a mid boost. The mid boost sounds phenomenal on this thing. It's really, really good for leads and just like more like things that you want like your mid range to stand out on. So that is set up, and those outputs come down to here. So now let's go back down to our patch bay. So into the pedal board, out of the pedal board. External 1 and 2, external 2, space echo, boom. Now let's talk about our amplifiers. We have 16 amplifiers that are all set up and ready to go. The input of the amplifier and the output of the amplifier. So now we need to send the output of the amplifiers into our cabinets. So we have our 4 speak-on inputs that go straight to the West Live Room, and our 4 speak-on inputs that go to the ISOBooth. So I could patch into either 4 cabs into the live room or 4 cabs into the ISOBooth right here. So the way that I accomplish this is, follow me. I grab cables like this and this, and I say, okay, I want to use, I'm going to come out of my pedal board, and I want to go into my Fender Champ, which is going to be number 1. So I patch into my Fender Champ, out of my Fender Champ, and I say, I'm gonna patch into my orange cab that is in my ISOBooth, and that's plugged into number 1 into the ISOBooth. Now, out of my computer, through my reamp box, into the pedal board, out of the pedal board, into the Fender Champ, out of the Fender Champ, into my orange cab. We have a perfect setup. We are ready to reamp. Now I have one extra output, so I can run a heavier amplifier. And let's say we want to run what's on number 2, which is our triple rectifier. So there that is. I'll plug in my speak-on cable, and I'm going to run that into my Bogner cab. Boom. I am now plugged into the Fender and the Mesa, running into 2 different cabs. This is how I patch everything. Now, if I just want to turn those on, I just turn on the Fender, and now it's on. Or number 2, now my triple rectifier is on. So I don't use like an amp switching device. I just have an analog device that does this for me. Especially because I like to use 2 amps simultaneously, and I like to have them all going through different cabs. So if I wanted to make an amp switcher, I'd have to have 2 different rails that I could assign the cabs to, whereas all the amp switchers only have 1 rail. So eventually maybe someone will build one and I'll use one, but for now, this is my analog system and this is how it works. So let's talk about my amplifiers, and let's start with my amplifier over here. First amplifier is the Fender Champ. This is like a 5-watt clean amplifier that only has 1 volume knob. So this is my clean amp, and I love to use this. This is a, like I said, it's only 5 watts. So this is a fun example of a thing that I like to use. Is I like to be really unique and plug into a thing called our Fryette power station. And that way I can run that 5-watt amplifier into this device and out of this device into our cab and make it 50 watts instead of 5 watts. So I can get a really, really, really loud clean amp. So I can accomplish that by plugging out of my Fender into my Fryette, out of my Fryette into my cab. And that way I have now changed this amplifier from 5 watts to 50 watts. And I do that with a lot of the amplifiers, with like my Vox and my Pathfinder, you'll see. So anything that's under 50 watts, I can boost it up. So that's what I do. This amp rocks, phenomenal amp. You just turn it on and it sounds good. You don't need to change the settings. Triple rectifier. This is amp number 2 in here. This is one of the most legendary amplifiers. Used on all my favorite nu metal records growing up. Everyone always played a Mesa Boogie triple rectifier. I always wanted a triple rectifier, but I had a dual, and the dual never sounded right. So eventually when I got a triple, I knew that that was the sound. Amazing clean sound, to be honest, too. Great gain, but amazing clean sound that people don't really like, give it credit for. But yeah, love that amp. Amazing amp, really start to have in the collection. Then the next one is our 5150. This is a block letter 5150, the coveted awesome 5150. This one sounds fucking awesome. It's been worked on all throughout its life. It doesn't have any main modifications, but it has like lots of stability modifications that have been done through it. It just sounds great. Great amp. When I was a kid, I modified it by putting this plexiglass thing on here and doing that. I was probably like 16. Got this amp for $450 from a used shop. Yeah, there it is. Then this is a Sovtech MIG. This is actually an amp that we're borrowing from our buddy Evan. It's a really cool, like snarly sounding, like JCM 800 type of amp. Very cool. Eventually I hope to put a high watt clone in here. I'd like to get a high watt 100 watt and put it in here. So we'll see if we get there at some point. Next we have a Marshall JMP. This is actually not mine. This is one that I've been borrowing from a friend. And it is just a very like clean, like unmodded, like normal JMP. Just sounds great. Really nothing else to say about it other than it's just a great amp. You can run the clean channel and run a bunch of effects into it and boost it up and chunk it up, and it gets that Pumpkins thing with that op amp pedal. Yeah, just a great amp. Then underneath it is the Dexter. So this is actually like a really cool story of these 2 amps. It's like a unique one, but basically I always really wanted a JMP, and so I found this one on Craigslist and I went to go pick it up. And it was in a warehouse with like a bunch of them and like a bunch of like high watts and stuff like that. I was like, what the fuck is this place? And it turns out that I was actually buying it from Green Day's Guitar Tech, this guy who's Bill Dexter, I think it's Bill Dexter Schneider, Bill Dexter, whatever. Really good guy. Super nice. So he's told me this guy, and then he told me that he was making like custom like quad input ones with all the mods. So he made this one for me. So this is like just the classic like JMP with the vertical input. It doesn't really have like too many tweaks. It has like a gain like tweak on it that like my amp guy did. But that's kind of about it. It's like a very like classic mid forward sounding Marshall that it just like has that classic Green Day sound. Then this is just like a really like beautiful modern sounding amp. Like this kind of has like the same kind of like huge low end and like reinforced modern gain sound as this. So these are like a little bit more like older sounding. Like these kind of all sound kind of similar. But this is just like a gorgeous amplifier. Sounds amazing. It's allegedly like the Green Day like tone circuit, and it has this like clean channel on it that's just like a volume and a tone. And we modded that by making it a push pull, so you just activate it by pushing and pulling it. But so it's 2-channel amp, but it's gorgeous amp, phenomenal sounding thing. If you haven't noticed, we like to have our go-to settings ready to go so that we can just like reamp through there and just like change anything that we need. These are all pretty much like we treat everything as like a one-trick pony. Like this thing has its sound, and we like it for this reason. So yeah, that is that. Then before we pan over to the orange over here, we should probably take a moment to talk about our Space Echo here. So this is a RE501, the really awesome Space Echo. It's got line in, and it also can do like guitar level and everything. So I have it hooked up to that patch bay, and then I have it hooked up to this patch bay so that I can patch in from the computer or anything. The chorus is phenomenal on it. Jesus, it just sounds amazing. The echo is great. It's nice to do that whole tape trick with it. Then the reverb just sounds really good. Just a really cool, unique, like old device. Like I'm really excited that I have this. Then I got, my isopropyl alcohol and my Q-tips so I can clean its heads and try to keep it in the best shape as possible. Then I had a nice homie send me this the other day. It's pretty tight. It's like this unique effect that like he made for me, and it's just like this cool little like effect box. And if you open it up, it's got this toy microphone like that. It looks pretty fucking awesome. So yeah, this is like a fun thing that we started kind of playing around with and trying to like incorporate into some things. So yeah, thanks to Destructive Audio for this. This is very nice. And then yeah, let's pan down to the orange 8140. A lot of people think it's an 80140, but it's not. It's AD, like Año Dominio. Is that what it is? Anyways, orange 8140, literally my favorite amplifier of all time. You might notice that the master volume is cranked all the way, turned all the way up. Yeah, that's how that amp sounds amazing. You have to fucking crank the goddamn shit out of this. It sounds so fucking good. I actually really like this on like even metal stuff, like modern metal things. It's just a beautiful, beautiful sounding amplifier. A lot of people like think they know what an orange sounds like, but they don't know what this orange sounds like. This orange rocks. It's so fucking good. I've had like people who just like fall in love with this when they make records here, go and buy one, and it never sounds like mine. Like this thing has been fixed so many times, and like every single time it comes back with like new parts and new upgrades. It has like completely different transformers. It's like this thing has been worked on and is this like amalgamation of just amazing love and respect, and this is just a true one-of-a-kind amplifiers that is just phenomenal. I basically, anytime I start a record and like start reamping, this is the first thing that I plug into. This is my true north. This, like the second I hear this amplifier, I know if I want to go more gainy, I'll go this way. If I want to go less gainy, I can go that way. This will allow me to hear and center myself and know what my guitars sound like on my record and take it from there. So this and my 5150 were like my amps that I like built my entire career off of. This is like the sound of Heavy Heavy Lolo. This is the sound of the Story So Far. This is the sound of like Basement. This is the sound of like State Champs. Like this is my sound, and like this sound is blended with the 5150, and that's like the basis of my guitar sound. So then you want to like move on and like get from so I have like this cleaner amp, and then a 5150 is my gainy amp. So I wanted another cleaner amp. So I started moving into Marshall territory. And then, if you want another heavy guy, you got your triple rack over there. But then, you want to start going cleaner and more organic. So I eventually got this guy, and this is just like a really, really cool amp. This is called a Newcomb Pathfinder. But this was like a vocal PA that got modified to be a guitar amp, and it's like it's a really unique setting. Like there's like one knob doesn't work, it's just a dummy knob, but like it's actually not like a normal EQ, it's just actually a high cut and a low cut. So they're just like cutting out high end and cutting out low end because there's just two master volumes, and the more you increase this, the more they distort. So it's like allegedly it's like a high wattage type of thing and a Voxish type of thing. So I kind of have the best of those two things in this box. This amp is so fucking cool. It has such a good sound and like a really cool vibe. Just really unique and textured. And so I run that into the Pathfinder, or sorry, I run this Pathfinder into the power station, and I like boost this up from its like 30 watts into like 50 watts over here. So it rocks. Then this is my AC30 right here. This is the head version of it. It's just a gorgeous amp. I run it in the chained mode where I'm running both channels, and yeah, this is pretty much my sound right here, just like that. I love this amp, rocks. Use this all the time. Underneath it, we have our Bogner. It's actually not a Bogner, it's just a DIY JCM 800. This is actually not our amp, we're borrowing this one. We've been borrowing it for a long time, but this is just a cleaner, like 50 watt JCM style amp, and it's just a really cool amp. It sounds really good. Then underneath it, we have the Jet City HDM. This is the one with the depth mod, but we modded the fucking shit out of this thing and turned this thing into like the most like Soldano slow clone kind of possible out of what is here. So this thing sounds really good. It fucking screams. It has so much fucking noise and like makes a lot of fucking noise, but its gain sounds great. Just a really modern thing. And it's funny how its controls are like the exact same as my like 5150 block letter, because it's basically just like the same type of design and a clone of each other. But yeah, it's just a really fun amp. I want to build like a big, nice high watt someday, but we'll get there. So, but this one, this is about to be replaced with a deluxe reverb that we're building, which is going to be our purified deluxe reverb. So that'll be awesome. Then let's go over here to our newest addition to the studio. This is a 5153. This is the stealth mod, and it's the one with the EL34s. And I got this one on a recommendation from my friend Mark Lewis, because he told me to buy this one when I was about to start making the Spirit World record. I said, I want a new amp. I don't want something that's going to be unique. What should I get? He said, get a 5153 EL34. It's awesome. And it rocks. And it was our like Spirit World fucking guitar tone. Like, here it is. This amp rocks. Its clean tone is really good. Its second channel is really good. I had an early 5153. It wasn't the stealth mod, but I had one, and I thought it was like almost good, but I liked my regular 5150 better. But they've fixed and tweaked everything that I didn't really like about it on these, and they just sound great, and I really love it. So yeah, we've been using this one a lot. Great amp. Like I said, the second channel is like really fucking cool too. We use that a lot. So then now we go down here. This is our Ampeg Jet. I got this after hearing that Eric Valentine used it on a bunch of his early Third Eye Blind stuff. And I saw it and I just really thought it was a gorgeous, clean option. So I got that, and it's really cool. It's like a unique, like, it's kind of like this and this guy. It's just like a nice, like textured, cleanish amp. Wouldn't really call it clean, but it's just like has a really cool, like unique, like organic sounding gain. I think it still has a speaker in here, but we modded it so that it just runs. We only run it into cabs, and it doesn't run into the speaker in here. It's just as like we treat it as a guitar head. And then underneath it, we have this simul satellite. My amp guy actually gave this to me because he fucking rocks. But yeah, so this is actually just like a Mesa like Mark II, like basically, and it's just like the good version of it, where it just is like a simple thing. It's just volume, tone, master, presence, and you got the cool EQ here. And what's really cool about it is you also have the push-pull knobs for the boost. So it's like really just like all the good stuff of that amp without all the bullshit. So this thing, like, it sounds fucking massive. Like, this thing is really big sounding. It has like such a huge like sounding like power amp on it. It rocks. I really love this thing. It sounds like it's on fire. Like, honestly, like when you use it, it's just like it's a really cool sound. But yeah, so those are all of the amplifiers. We have space for one more amplifier, which would be 16. And I'm thinking about making a bass amplifier at some point. I used to have like a V4 and a different bass amp, but I've just been running DI recently, and then I've just been using this power station too, which is really nice. But if I mic up a bass cab other than my combo, usually it's because a band has their own. So yeah, that kind of wraps up the amps there. I guess we can talk about some features of this wall. As you might notice, we have trinkets of pandas everywhere throughout the whole studio. So I got a bunch of things just hanging around. You know, we got our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles over here. We got all my homies from Australia. We got my cat, you know. We got me and my wife here hanging out. Just a lot of cool photos and trinkets, you know, just a little inspiring stuff. We can talk about this wall here for a second because you all kind of know the drill by now. We have our 4 IEC cables. We have an extension cable so that you can, you know, run a laptop in here and do whatever you want. This is all our headphone cables that you would need for in and out of the room here. We have all of our XLR to TRS cables that you would need if you want to patch in any external gear or run it into any of the other rooms. All my guitar cables, including my no capacitance guitar cables that are here. We got our patch cables, we got our paintbrush, we got our gaff, we got our short patch cables, we got our speak on cables, we've got our speak on patch cables, we've got our splitters, and you've got some extra USB junk that you would need if you want to operate some things in this room. So everything you would need is just ready to go right here. So yeah, now that brings us over into the desk. So first things first, for those who are old school and boomers and lame grandpas who would ask the question, why don't you have a console? Well, I'll tell you why. I have even more benefits than a console here in this desk. I have everything I would want from a console in this desk. I got my preamps, I got my EQs, I've got my compression, I've got my patching and my routing. I've got everything I need to run my studio right here. So let's talk about it. I am using an iMac. My iMac is using an HD system, Pro Tools Avid HD, to get in and out of the computer. I'm using these 2 HDIOs, and I am rocking 32 inputs, 32 outputs. So those are going directly into Pro Tools. I am utilizing this beautiful Avid S3 console to mix and set and handle all my level adjustments. This is one of my favorite pieces of the studio. I love this desk. Yeah, so all of this is being monitored by 2 NS10s. I painted mine purple, so they're very cool NS10s. And also, mine has a happy face and the sun logo. So it's fucking awesome. We upgraded them and they have Bold North audio cones. They have brand new tweeters, and they are also fused so that they will not blow. They are being powered by the Bryston 3B power amp, one of my favorite power amps. And we also have a subwoofer as well to provide some of that low end there. All of that is being controlled by our dangerous monitor controller. I have this beautiful device here where I can switch between my inputs from my computer to my DAW. I can turn my sub on and off. I don't have any other monitors. I really just like listening to NS10s, and there it is. No big deal. We are also using SonarWorks reference ID to tune. Everything is very good there. So now let's move on to how we get audio into the computer and make records. So the first thing is we have our preamps. Before we talk about our preamps, I guess we should talk about our patch bay down here. We'll work our way up. So this control room is capable of patching into all 3 of our rooms here to record from. So the top row is the West Live room, the second row is the isolation room, and the third row is the East Live room. This fourth row is where the preamplifier inputs are. We also have extra preamplifier input lines for these other extra inputs here as well too. I think we currently have either 22 or 24, I think 22 preamps going on right now. We'll have 24 inputs at some point. But yeah, so anyways, the top row, West Live, ISOBooth, East Live, preamps, our extra lines and our extra preamps, everything is ready to go there. Boom. Above that, we have our power play from our Behringer unit. All of my audio from these is patched out, go into there so that all of our monitors can be controlled by our musicians in either this room or that room with those controllers in there. And there that is. So now we move up to our preamps. I have a 10-channel rack of Cappy VP28s. I used to have the GAR 2520 op amps, and then I upgraded them to their Cappy op amps that they have. I don't know the number of them, but it's those one Cappy newer ones. These used to sound really good. They, like, you know, a lot of people like would say these are their favorite preamps of all time. I don't know, I'd go that far. They're great sounding preamps, but I really love my Lolas down here. These are my favorite preamps like of all time. These preamps just sound so fucking goddamn good. But anyways, the Cappies, built these hairballs down here. Shout out to Mike from Hairball Audio, because Hairball is fucking awesome. So yeah, anyways, I use these on like kick, toms, hi-hat, a couple like mono things, just like anything that's like close mic and cool. It's worth saying that, like, you know, these like are like the best like kick preamps, like out of everything I have, it just sounds way the best on these preamps. Like, so everything is all tailored for like the right signal path here. I use these Lolas on overheads and room microphones. Anything you want to just sound big, huge, and colorful and fucking awesome. Those are the Lolas. They rock. I have the Hardy 990 op amps in them, just the standard ones, not the DIY ones. It's just a really, really amazing preamp. I have 4 extra open spots here. I would like to make my own custom preamp and have my own design. We'll see if we can get there. Otherwise, I'll probably just get some Lolas and fill that up in there. Then underneath that, we have our Locomotive tube preamp. This rocks. I always really wanted a really cool tube preamp to like blow shit up with. So I use this for like U47 and like the other like mono like trash mic that I like to blow up and shit with drums. Really phenomenal sounding tube thing. Also like plugging in like my synthesizer, like my OP1 and stuff right into this on the DI is just phenomenal. Sounds great. That reminds me that we should probably talk about these 2 DIs behind us here. I have the Avalon DI here that I use for all my guitars. This is pretty much just the way that we record all guitars, and this is why we have it in both rooms. And then right here I have my Zod DI, and this is a tube DI that I use for bass. Just as a little bit more rounder, just sounds a little bit bigger and like not as bright. Just a beautiful unit. Sounds really good. So that is the input devices on this side of the room here. Everything terminates to this TRS patch bay that has been nicely written out by our lovely assistant Teresa over there. Thankfully she has some very nice handwriting so we can read and see everything on this complicated patch bay. This is a typical setup for us here because we are using hardware as we're mixing and as we're tracking, so things are always patched in and ready to go for us to recall. So that brings us into the center section of this desk. On the desk, my first favorite thing is I have my launch pad here so that I can do all my MIDI routing if I need to, just right there. I have my mouse ready to go. Perfect in action. First piece of gear here that I love, this is my Undertone Audio MP-EQ. This is my favorite preamp and my favorite EQ. I know that I said that the Lola was my favorite preamp. You'd be shocked how close both of these sound. Oddly, these are both like really clean, like unique, like Neve styled things. They're just really colorful, really like great sounding preamps. So I use this on like snare top, snare bottom, vocal, DI guitar, bass, guitar mics. This is like my favorite. I try to put everything through this. So yeah, this is like my homie. This is like my main thing. Also, this is the most powerful EQ. It's just like an incredible EQ, and I could patch just into the EQ and like run things to the EQ on it. Phenomenal preamp, beautiful design. Unfortunately, they discontinued these for a minute. Apparently, they're going to start making them in small batches, but just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful preamp and design. I would have my entire studio with these if I could. Then we should probably talk about the other features on the desk here. I have my loudness monitor, which is from TC Electronics, Clarity M. I'm using it to make sure my program loudness is pretty much good. I definitely am shooting for like -7 at least. I try to go real loud, like -3 if I could, without destroying things, but you know, we'll do what we can. Anyways, I really like the meter on this thing because then at any time that I'm working on any stereo stuff, I can make sure that my center image is ready and good to go. So that is my meter there. I have my oblique strategies, We should definitely pull a card because when in doubt, zoom out, you know what I'm saying? Who should be doing this job and how would they do it? Didn't I get that card last time in the other room?
Yeah.
I pulled the same card from 2 different decks. That's pretty wild. Let's pull a different card then. Turn it upside down. Wow, how fun. Okay, well, you know, I'll sip a beer to that. Why not, you know? Okay, anyways, we've got the purified pin here. We've got the Dogecoin, Go Dogecoin. We've got my 250 classes from Orange Theory. I'm one of the sexiest moms from Livermore's Orange Theory that exists, no big deal. This is a camera so that we can do all of our filming up here, no big deal. I got some pics in here and there's a nice Slimer jar. This was a amazing strain of weed that I once smoked. It was great. And it's a really cool jar. I got my Ewok jar with all my little picks and my Evertune keys and all my basic things that I would need right here. And then we move on to my second favorite thing in the middle of my desk here. This is my 10-channel SSL EQ rack. And we made this into a plugin, so you can get that. This is the SLP 538 in hardware form, basically. Absolutely my favorite EQ that I've ever used. There's a long story behind this, but basically a long time ago I used a friend's recording studio, and he had a rack of API EQs, and I was really excited to try those. And he was like, nah, you're gonna want to try these. And he showed me a rack of these, and he was like, use these instead. They're way better than the APIs. And I did, and I love them. And I asked him all about it, and he was like, I'll build you a pair. So he racked me a pair of 2, and I used those 2 for like a good 10 years on everything. And then when I had to buy this, I ran out of money, so I had to sell those. I always really missed them. Even though that this EQ sounds phenomenal, is amazing, this EQ is also really good and really quick and really easy to work with. And I just wished I had 10 channels of it. So eventually I looked for it and I found it, and I was like, that's it, I'm committing to the 10-channel unit. Here we go, we're doing it. And I did it, and it got here, and it got destroyed in shipping, and we had to get it fixed, and finally got them all working, and boom, there they are. So these are my 10 channels of SSL EQs. These were EQs from a broadcast console from a 5K SSL. So they're very quick. They only have high Q switches to make them a narrow bandwidth. So you just choose like your gain amount and which frequency, and then that's it. So it's so easy to just like EQ an entire thing and be like, okay, great. That is an EQ'd snare drum now, boom. So yeah, I use all these on drums. I use these a lot. If I'm not using these, I'm using these. So yeah, that's the middle of my desk here. I've got an SM7 ready to go in case I want to do any podcasting or like talk back to my artists or anything like that. So boom, that's, you know, one of the, I don't know why I can't get that to work right. But yeah, so that is ready to go there. Then that moves us on to our left side of our rack. By the way, how cool is my orange case from Etsy that I got for my AirPods? Shout out to my best friend Mel Torres telling me to get this, so I got it, no big deal. Okay, great. Now we're on this side of the rack. This is one of my favorite racks. This is has a lot of my favorite gear, but we should probably talk about some of the trinkets on here. You know, got Highway 1 for the Pacific Coast. You know, if you haven't driven Highway 1 in California, you're missing out. You got to go. You know, you got a Topo Chico little pin. We have the pin from my old hockey team, the Blackhawks and the San Jose Sharks. So, you know, get a little bit of swag right there. And also this beautiful Purified logo. Just, you know, a lot of cool trinkets. We can start up here on the top. This is my OP1. This is my favorite synthesizer of all time. This is like, I could do absolutely everything. I could make an entire record like with just this. It'd be totally fine. I love this thing. It's really phenomenal. We have it ready to go. This is a Casio VL Tone. This thing is fucking amazing. Jesus Christ, I use this on everything to like figure out like tuning and like melodies. This is like my calculator that I like work with daily. And also it has some really cool famous beats. So like if you did this, da da da, do 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 do, da da da. Really popular thing that's been used on a lot of cool songs. So yeah, there you go. Then recently I got the Steven Slade VSX headphones, the virtual studio headphones. He sent them over. Shout out to Steven Slade, he's a very nice guy. best friends, me, you, Stephen Slate, best friends. Yeah, so they're pretty cool. I really like using them during revisions just to check out some different rooms and see how my mixes are sounding in them. It's pretty awesome. I have a tripod for when I need to set up my FaceTime calls with some clients or anything, and then I have a nice little slate in case we're recording any video for purified stuff ready to go. Then at the top here, my favorite tool, these are my distressors. I got these at the beginning of my career. I've had these for at least like 20 years. Phenomenal compressors. These were my only compressors that I used for like a decade of my life, and eventually they moved into a drum bus for me. And I first started off as like 4-to-1, and then eventually, when I worked with Eric Valentine, he had it on 20-to-1. So I was like, I'll try it on 20-to-1. So this is my whole setting: slowest attack, fastest release. That is my drum bus, and since this lived on drum bus, I missed not having my distressors for tracking, so I eventually got a pair of them for tracking. So usually I have them set up something like this. I really love this mid band on it. It just sounds great on the detector. I love the high pass detector on. 3-to-1, slowest attack, fastest release, and I try to get maybe around 10 dB of compression. I hit into the yellows a little bit. Love it. Just like go-to kick and snare sound. I love it. I also really love the 10-to-1 mode for guitars and bass. Just sounds great. And Nuke is always really fun. So yeah, these ones are like my channel tracking distressors. This is what I like to track with. This is always set for drum bus. Like I can't ever change the settings on these, otherwise I can't recall any mixes because this is always running. Then underneath that, I have the EMI compressor. This is a DIY compressor that I made. It's like a TG EMI compressor. This thing was like such a fucking goddamn bitch to make and get to work. But when I did, Jesus, it sounds exactly as I wanted it to sound. This compressor and a Compex compressor are probably the best, and maybe a microlimiter are like the best sounding aggressive compressors I've ever used in my life. Phenomenal. I just absolutely love this. This is all like my holds and my attack and just the sound of the drums, and this is all this punch and weight. It just pumps cymbals and makes it sound like this pumpy gorgeous thing. So I love that. So yeah, distressors, EMI. Then underneath it I have 2 transient designers, not 1, 2, because I love transient designers. Shout out to Jason Sukoff because he also loves transient designers and has a bunch. But if you ever listen to any Brendan O'Brien records, I'm a Brendan O'Brien fan. This is like the sound of Brendan O'Brien. It's like these transient designers. The second you lift the sustain knob, it just sounds like Brendan O'Brien, drum sounds. I fucking love these. Kick in, kick out, snare top, snare bottom, tom, tom. I use this on U47. I use them on everything. I really love transient designers, absolutely one of my favorite compressors. And plugin companies haven't really done it right. So I'm trying to make a transient designer at some point, so we'll make that happen. Then underneath it, we have a 500 rack where I have a bunch of options of what I want to fill. I got a bunch of things that I'd love to put into it, but that's like a slow accumulation of things, We have an expressor, or what is this called? It's a expressor, not expressor. Expressor. This thing is pretty cool. I wish it was a little bit more punchy and pumpy, but it's like a pretty tight device. I haven't really implemented this or really used it into anything yet, so it's still maybe on a chopping block for getting sold at some point. But it's a really cool compression sound. It holds really well. Here's a Rev F 1176. This sounds really good. I used to use this one a lot, and then I sold it to my buddy Chad from 100th, and then he gave it to me to try to sell to him. We still haven't sold it. So if anyone wants to buy this, you can buy this. It's a great compressor. Phenomenal, to be honest. We just don't need it here. Then we have 2 prototype EQs. I guess maybe I'm being disrespectful by showing these, but these are prototype EQs from Hairball that Mike was working on and was sending to me, and I was giving him some feedback for. And I don't really know whatever happened to them, but they sounded phenomenal. They're really good. And I don't know if that'll ever become a product or what's the deal with that, but they should, because they're really fucking cool. So yeah, that is this rack. These things are always hard set. I can't ever change them. I can always fuck with all of this stuff, and ideally I'll have a bunch of more weird comps and SSL styled stuff or whatever that I'll fuck with on here. So that is that rack. Then we move down to here. First of all, I got these Shure headphones here that are sitting here. These are my go-to headphones whenever I'm doing any work. They're just fucking comfortable. I can sit here for 8 hours and work with them, no problem. So those are hanging up there. So we got our Dangerous monitor controller here with a nice 420 sticker. Big deal, smoke weed. So yeah, that is the dangerous controller there. Underneath that, we have all of my Rev compressors that I got from 11 or Hairball. So these are my Rev A's. These are the blue stripes, and these are the ones that I use for vocals. I got two of them because I got one as a backup, and then also if you want to run like handoff vocals, if you're mixing, then you gotta like print them that way. So Rev A, boom. Underneath that is Rev D. Those sound monstrous on guitars and on bass. They're really fucking good. Use those a lot. Then underneath that is the Rev Fs. Man, what a great sounding modern one. If a distressor was ever trying to sound like 1176, it's definitely trying to sound like a Rev F because it just sounds way more modern and like sounds like the closest to a distressor that I've heard an 1176 sound. I use that on like snare bus. It's like always patched in, like always ready to go. It's like another hardware piece that I'm never really changing. You'll see that we got calibration settings for all of these. We calibrate all of these. Me and Teresa will spend some days just updating everything and checking them and making sure that everything is coming back and leaving with the correct signal and being perfectly calibrated for our sessions, so we can always just patch them in. So those are the 1176s. It's worth noting that those were the things that we modeled to make our VU compressor from Purified. So all these are like modified and tweaked in cool ways, and so all that is put into the compressor on that plugin. I only set it to 4:1, slowest attack, fastest release. I never change it. I never touch them. That's why they sit down here, because I never want to touch them and move them. So that's how the plugin basically responds, is it just is the exact same as these for me. So that is that side of that. It basically finishes up the desk here. We can move on to this rack here. We'll start with our beautiful iMac here that is playing Silicon Valley, one of the best shows in the world. You know, we try to put some cool inspiration on in the background. We've got a little SSL console here so that we can plug in some headphones and do things like that, run into some little Genelecs. These things actually sound really cool. It's really nice to check audio on it sometimes. But yeah, we usually have this set up so that we can launch Zoom sessions and we can do our audio streams then we're mixing so that we can actually hear the clients and have headphones running out of this SSL. So yeah, that's set up. Also, we have this nice little 3D printed trinket here of a Panda holding a VU compressor, and this was made by my great friend Mel Torres. And he also made me a bigger one that's over there that I forgot to give a shout out of, but there it is.
You have to talk about it.
And yeah, so yeah. Then we have all the gear here in this rack to go over. So first thing, and one of the most important things in the entire chain, is this C2 compressor. So there's a lot of history inside of the experience of having this as my mix bus compressor that I'll go on for you. But I basically started my career by learning on an SSL and fell in love with the sound of the SSL desk comp. And whenever I would turn that on, I just loved how it sounded and thought that it sounded way more similar to the records that I was referencing at the time, which were all Tom Lord Alge and Andy Wallace records that were definitely being mixed on an SSL using an SSL bus compressor. So of course, I liked the sound of it. But then all my teachers were like, no, you turn that off and you don't use that till the end. You try not to use that during mix, which they were all wrong. You should all turn on your mix bus and start using that from moment one. So point is, when I eventually was mixing the box, I was using like SSL styled stuff. And then eventually worked at a studio and they had one of these. So I was using this on my mix for a while and I loved it. And I fell in love with this and was like, okay, well, let me get a comp like that. So I wanted to get a cheap DIY one. So I found that company Serpent and got one of their 500 series ones. That was my comp for a long time, but then I was like, maybe I can get something even better. So I got an actual desk SSL comp that was re-racked and I didn't like that. So then I eventually moved on to the Shadow Hills one, really didn't like that. Moved on to an Obsidian, didn't like that. Moved on to a Focusrite Red 3, didn't like that. Was running out of options and I was like, let's just try the C2 again and see if that is the one. And I got that and that's the one. That's my favorite mix bus compressor. It's just the best sounding mix bus comp. I love this thing so much. I hit it really hard. I love it. I used to always rock this at 2:1 slowest attack, fastest release. Occasionally would go between 4 and 2:1, and then occasionally between auto and fast release, and I couldn't figure out what to do. And then eventually, when I worked with Valentine, he was using 3:1 and auto with the slowest attack, and I was like, all right, fine, that's what I'm going to do from now on. I used to use it in dual mono mode, but then Eric was using it in stereo, so I used it in stereo as well. I never used the external sidechain for a few years until like recently. I was like, let me just try it, and I tried it. I'm like, Jesus, I probably should have been using that for a long time. I really like the external sidechain. It just makes the low end sound a little bit better, and it's not like I don't have to crush the bus too hard. It's a little bit more forgiving now. The other like best feature, this crush button. This is the best sounding drum bus compressor I've ever heard in my life. I would use this comp just as my drum bus compressor if I could just press this crush bus. So I would love to get one that is only the crush bus someday. It's fucking awesome. It's really upsetting that it exists right here and I can't use it because this thing is on my mix bus, but I would totally get another one and have that as my drum bus if I could. So this is my mix bus. You know, I used to peg it really hard and get like have a hard time getting vocals loud enough on it. So eventually I was like, let me just pull the vocals out of that, and I put it on its own mix bus. So this is a DIY one that I have. This is another SSL one. It's got all the mods like the turbo mod and the sidechain mod and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so this is just I set it to 4-to-1, slowest attack, fastest release, and this one's just ready to go. This is just my vocal mix bus. Kind of meant to have like a similar sound and vibes. So vocals are outside of the mix bus. This is just instrument bus, and then I combine these in the box, and that becomes my master. So that's my mix bus chain. I got a couple of open spots here. I'd like to eventually like get a Fatso and like another SSL mix bus and like maybe something like an API 2500. But those are all things that are like on the really expensive list of like kind of pointless things that I don't really need. They're just kind of like things that I would love to have. So we'll see if we will do that someday. So anyways, underneath that, we have the LA3A. This is a unit I built. I fucking love this unit. It's one of my favorite compressors of all time. It just sounds phenomenal. It's got the kinetic T4Bs. And this is the one that we modeled for our plug in the VU compressor. So when you switch to 3A, it's actually switching to that. Really just phenomenal sounding unit. I use it on guitars. I use it on bass. I use it on vocals. It's just a really great sounding unit. I definitely should have another. I wish I could have one more of that. Like it was expensive to even get this one, and it was a lot of work to even just build this one and make it a thing. But I wish I had one more of it. It would make me super stoked. So someday I'll get another one. Underneath that, we got Pultecs. We got 4 of them. These are the really cheap Clark and Technic Pultecs, but we modded the fucking shit out of them. So these have 2 different mods on them. This is the hi-fi mod, these 2, and then these 2 down here are the vintage mods. So these ones are more like distorted and like thick and pillowy sounding, and these are a little bit more like fast and transient focus sounding. What I really love about the Pultecs that I've used at other studios that are like really like nice Pultecs is when you increase the low end, the size of the thing just feels like it gets bigger, but it doesn't sound like you're adding low end, and it doesn't sound like you're like increasing like an EQ band. It just sounds like it just gets bigger and heavier. And so this, after we got this mod done, this is the first time I've ever used a Pultec in a very long time that actually responds that way. Like I've never gotten that response out of a plugin. I've never really gotten that response out of other EQs, but I finally got it out of these things, and it actually like feels that way. So just a really nice thing to like run on channels of like guitars or like kick and snare, things like that. So ideally these are going to be on my more like these are probably going to be like kick and snare and guitars and stuff like that, and these might be like more bass and guitars. So we'll see. We're going to have to start incorporating these, but really excited about them. They both they sound really good. The mods are all that they just like have all brand new caps in all of them, and changed all of the tubes in them, and like the tubes are like a dramatic difference like between the listening tests of them. But my amp guy Randall, he's the guy who modded them for me, and he made me 4 different ones. And so me and Teresa and a couple friends had a listening test where we put some audio through it and printed it all at the exact same settings, and we decided to see which ones we thought sounded best and which ones we could consistently pull out as the best sounding ones and as our favorites, and we chose 2 of them, and that's what we did. So those are our Pultecs there. Then we go over to our other side rack over here. This has the more like cheaper fun stuff. These are my DBX 163s. I fucking love these comps. I've used DBX 160Xs, DBX 160As. I've used the 160 VUs, which are really phenomenal. I wish I had a pair of VUs, to be honest. But the 163, they sound so good. They do everything about, like, they do the DBX sound with even less controls, and it makes it really easy. So I love them. I use them on like out kick and bottom snare and toms, and they're just really, really, really good compressors. So yeah, then next is we have the 3630 from Alesis. This is a fun comp. I had tried this a long time ago. I didn't really like it that much, but then recently some friends of mine convinced me to get one and give it a shot. And basically, once I learned how to use it correctly, it actually is really fucking tight. But the whole point is like I'm in love with Daft Punk and like Justice and like early records like that. And like those like records just have this huge fucking bottom end and this huge like pumpy nature to it that is just so cool, and they just sound really glossy. And allegedly what they did was they would just shove a kick drum into this so fucking loud with the entire mix on here, so that each time the kick hits, it ducks the whole mix. So that's their like side chain, like pumpy sound. So we got one of those to like mimic that and have that on the rack as another option, just because I love that vibe. So this is a newer thing. We haven't really incorporated it into anything yet, but we'll fuck with it more and more. So yeah, there it is. Then underneath that are my favorite compressors ever. These are my micro limiters. I got 3 of them right here. Jesus Christ, I fucking love these things. These are literally my favorite compressors of all time. I'd be happy to make an entire record with just this. Mix, bus, everything. I would compress everything with this. I'd feel so confident with this compressor. It sounds so good. I just love them on, like, I found this a long time ago. A friend of mine told me that, like, when they were mixing a record, a guy used it as their drum bus. And so I checked it out and I got it for $30, and I loved it so much that I got a few more of them. So I've owned 5 of them in my life. I have 4 currently. So yeah, they rock. I use them on rooms. I use them on keys. I use them on background vocals. I use them all the time. And so we made it into a plugin for my company. So this is now as a plugin. So I get to use it and mix all the fucking time. But yeah, these rock. I fucking love these. And it's funny, the price is just like skyrocketed on them ever since I've been, raving about them. And now people are starting to kind of know that these are pretty fucking tight. So yeah, like I said earlier, like a Compex and a TG are like my favorite, like most aggressive sounding compressors I've ever used. They just rock. So then underneath it, our last piece of gear in here is our Aphex 204. This is just amazing on toms and like bottom snare and kick and stuff like that. Like, it sounds really fucking good. Like, also like random things like guitar and shit like that sometimes, like during mix, like problematic things. Like this is like a unique like thing. It's one of those like early pieces that like I bought as a kid, and like thankfully like held on to one. I would actually, if I could, I'd have another rack of this too, because it's really like nice to have 2 channels of it. It'd be cool to have 4 channels of it. Just a really cool like exciter, and just adds a bunch of bottom end of toms, makes them sound way more glossy. You can just kind of like fix anything and like make it sound cool if something sounds like boring and fucked up. So yeah, then besides that, we just have a couple of random things sitting here. I have a old MIDI device here for in and outs of Pro Tools, but then this is like an obsolete thing that is discontinued, so it's kind of just in the graveyard here. Old hard drive, still hanging out, and then I have a backup Crown amplifier in case this Bryston ever dies. I can just immediately switch over to the Crown amplifier. So yeah, I used to power my NS10s with this originally. Fucking great sounding amp. And then now I use Bryston, but yeah, still have that in case I ever need that. So that basically covers this whole rack here. We can talk about some of the cool trinkets in the room and just kind of the room itself. Got like my Kiss Bear here. Got an Enjoy skateboard here. RIP Enjoy. Apparently they're going out of business. Yeah, then I got like a little side rack here with some Sharpies and basic shit like that you would need. Some tape and a labeler and markers and some papers to write down notes, anything that you would want, to organize yourself during a session. Nice couches here. Nice pillow of my homie Drug Seeker. What's up, dog? Then I got the recording light, obviously. Our friend the Android over there. Then a pillow from the Pillow Guy. And this is his art piece of Snoop Dogg that he made out of a bunch of weed and a bunch of joints. Pretty fucking awesome. Then if you've watched Silicon Valley, then you know about this, Always Blue. Ooh. Wow, I'm on a roll on this one. I don't know if I can stop. Whoa. We might have a problem, guys. Am I gonna voluntarily walk away from this because it's gonna be awkward if I just keep doing this right now? Wow. This is there, all right, thankfully. That was amazing. We'll have to count how many that was. You'll have to put a ticker on that video. So yeah, then here we are at the wall of trinkets. A lot of random stuff in here, a bunch of little dunnies, a bunch of little pandas, all my little trinkets. You know, everyone would give me gifts and say, hey, I got you a little panda. So here it is, you know, here's like a pipe where you can pack your bowl here and then you smoke out of the panda right there. No big deal, dude. So pretty tight. Then let's see, we got a bunch of strings. So I'm very big about matching the string size to the tuning of the guitar. So I have every possible string. So when a guy's like, yo, I'm going to tune to D standard, I'm like, okay, well, it's these sizes, so I can go through here. So I have a bunch of them, every single possible string that you can imagine, ready to go. Then I have like some fun stuff like this little shitty microphone that you can do for effect stuff, or this Altoid amplifier, just a couple fun things. An EBO, shit like that, you know, trinkets, knife. So if you ever try to cost me, I'll fucking slit your throat. You know what I'm saying, dude? So don't come at me like that. Yeah, that's pretty much about it for this room. Yeah, Ewoks, because you know Ewoks are fucking tight. You know why not? You know, even though it's the Panda Studios. Then also, you know, we got a big panda poster here. It's an Andy Warhol print that my sister got me a long time ago when I started the studio, and it's remained as the centerpiece ever since. So, yeah, that kind of wraps up the West control room. Okay, so now we are in our third control room, and this is a room that I call Baby Panda. It's a newer room, but basically it is our third room where we can do any sort of overdubs, editing, mixing, etc., etc. Basically, I do a lot of session prep in here and a lot of DIs and a lot of vocals in here. This is a room where the treatment is just real simple. We just have the diffusion absorption wall behind here, and then all of the absorption is on the wall, head to toe here. Two nice little clouds, and it's a pretty dead sounding room, pretty controlled. We are running an Avid Mbox Studio as our input for this entire computer. So this controls everything, all of our inputs. We are using two Dynaudios for our main speakers here. We don't have a subwoofer or anything because it's a smaller room and it's already pumping pretty hard with that. This is my mono machine. Shout out to Sophie, RIP. This is the reason I bought it, is because I fucking absolutely loved her productions, and have this as one of my tabletop guys to mess with. Love this thing, and really, really fun. I make super creative and unique things on this every time I mess with it. So that's always here ready to go. I love it for like kick and snare, like samples and stuff like that. I'll just drop in and try to make some synth stuff with it when I can. So all of that can be controlled with my launch pad, like I have in every single room. This is like set to the key so that I can just easily swap between anything I want to do. So yeah, that is the main setup there. I got a basic patch bay for some basic in and outs on all the Mbox Studio here. The Mbox rocks because I can, you know, use my AirPods on it, or I can even broadcast it in my car. That's right outside of this room. I can do a lot of different things with it. Here's all my cables that I have over here. You know, you got your extension, and you got your power, and your headphones, and your microphone cable, and your TRS, and your TS, and everything's ready to go. So you can hang one of your guitars here, your bass, and you can sit here and we can just start plugging away on a bunch of data. A lot of plugin development, a lot of data entry stuff goes on in this room. This is a very active room, so it's super nice because a lot of times Charles will be in East, and sometimes I'll have another session going on in West, and I'll need a room to actually be doing stuff in, so I can just do anything I want in here. So that is pretty cool. That kind of is about it in this room. I have one cool piece of art hanging up here that's real nice. This is the polar bear version of Walter Sobchak from The Big Lebowski. This dude from Reno made this. He's cool. He goes by like Lucido. Yeah, really cool art piece that I saw that I really liked, and I've had this in here for just fit the room. So yeah, beautiful room. Really enjoy working in here and really enjoy having it as another room. Simple couch. Also, you can just fold it down so bands can crash if they want to as well too inside of here. Someone can sleep here, so it's just a nice little comfortable room for anyone who wants to hang out. Okay, so the last room we have here at the Panda Studios is the warehouse. And it is my garage where I fix and build and paint and do whatever I want. And sometimes I stick big speakers in here and I reamp things in this awesome room here. So yeah, let's just talk about my workbench here. I used to be a guitar tech that used to tour, and so this was my old tech box that I used to bring, and this is where I do all my guitar fixing, intonation, everything. Yep, right here. Then I got all my basic cleaning tools, tape, some Velcro strips, all my tools here. You know, you got my boom box, you know, then I got a bunch of stuff organized, so any tool you'd ever want, you know, you just come into here and you can get it, and it's all labeled and all very nice and very organized. So yeah, then my soldering stuff and my solder tin right here so that I can just quickly pull that down and start fixing and building cables and doing whatever I want. Got stuff for heat shrink and my desolderer and all my extra guitar parts up here. Everything's good to go. Then I also have my original license plate for my car, my Little West. If you don't know the Little West story, you should watch that. He's like, everyone, give it up for Little West Borland. Check it out. It's a great story. So yeah, that is the workbench here. And then I have all these extra supplies over here, you know, some extra IC cables, speaker cables, power, you know, some extra drum stuff, like some boxes of stuff that I'm not sure if I have to send back or whatever, you know, computer stuff, audio stuff, extra pieces for like, you know, extra cones and backup stuff, bare cables so I can build any things that I want, all my extra connections and snakes and bare snakes and everything I need to make a bunch of cables. So if I have a problem, I just walk in here and I grab my tools and I go to work and I fix it. So this is our warehouse where we do all that work. And that completes the warehouse. So there you have it, the Panda Studios. I want to thank you for taking the time to visit and hang out and learn about our recording studio. Be sure to come and visit us anytime you wanted to hang out and be best friends. And if you liked this video, be sure to click the thumbs up, ring that bell, and hit subscribe for all future notifications from Purified.